Hello, Read You Guess Nation! Today I come with you with a video about possibly the most influential TV show, not only of my time, but of all time. We have, on this channel before, explained all of Just Roll With It Riptide, but what we haven't done is touched on literally every other interest that I have. My plan with this YouTube channel is to talk about as many of my interests in as excruciating of a detail as possible. And so that is why today, I will be explaining the entirety of modern Doctor Who. My microphone taped to the only pop vinyl that I own, the 11th Doctor Matt Smith pop vinyl, raised on Doctor Who. Me and my dad used to watch it like every Sunday. This thing is iconic. What is Doctor Who? Doctor Who, at its core, is a show about time travel. We follow the Doctor, this bad boy, a time traveler as he travels through space and time in his spaceship. But it's a little bit more than that. The Doctor is a Time Lord, an alien from the planet Gallifrey. Now, Gallifrey is filled with Time Lords. Time Lords basically are the keepers of all space-time. Doctor, his planet, Gallifrey, was involved in something called the Time War. The Time War was a war between the Time Lords, the Doctor's species, and the Daleks, species of war robot time, but it was known as the greatest and worst war in all of history. The Doctor here is the last surviving Time Lord after the Time War. Now, he travels through all of space-time in his ship called the TARDIS. TARDIS standing for Time and Relative Dimensions in Space. The TARDIS is a spaceship, however, it is also a blue police box. Give me a second. I own a lot of Doctor Who paraphernalia, one of which does happen to be this actual TARDIS. Now, this is what, well, this one's a bit battered and bruised. This one has seen better days. This is generally what the TARDIS looks like. It is a blue police box from the 70s, I believe. And you may be thinking, Reed, why the fuck does the Doctor's spaceship look like a police box from the 1970s? And, well, I have an answer for you. The TARDIS has something called a chameleon device in it, in which wherever it lands, it is supposed to take shape of something reasonably to fit into the time period so that it's not detectable by the average human. However, the first time the Doctor flew the TARDIS, he landed in 1970s and it cloaked as a police box and the chameleon circuit broke, and so it is stuck like that. Why can't he just fix it? And the answer is he can, he just doesn't want to because he thinks it's funny. Your next question probably is, how the fuck does he fit inside that thing? It's a police box. Answer, Time Lord technology. The Doctor did steal it. I'm gonna be honest, he stole it. He's a thief. He is actually kind of low-key anti-capitalist. He's like sort of low-key me. He's low-key kind of pop-punk. He's like kind of rock and roll. And I fuck with it. Bigger on the inside. It's bigger on the inside. The inside of the TARDIS is actually almost infinitely large. It usually has like a main console room, which has all the whatchamajiggies, the gigamawhatsits, and the doodahs that he presses and dings to travel through space and time. And then the Doctor has a sonic screwdriver. And I think the last bit of basic Doctor Who lore before we get into all of it, how is he the 9th Doctor? This show is 60 years old. Time Lords can regenerate. They're like cats. They have lives. In this case, 12 lives. All Time Lords are born with 12 lives. And every time they die, whether it be of old age or they get shot, they can regenerate into a new face. All Doctors we will be talking about here are technically the same Doctor. Why is he the 9th one? Because we've had, like, what, 26 seasons of Doctor Who up until this point. Anything that is relevant in those first 26 seasons, I will tell you as it comes up. Classic Who isn't necessarily vital to watch to understand New Who, as long as you know the basics. There is 13 seasons of Doctor Who, at least modern Doctor Who. I will not be talking about old Doctor Who. If all goes well, I should have a video in 3 parts. This video will be part 1. We will be covering seasons 1 to 4, the Eccleston and Tennant era. Video number 2 will hopefully, cover seasons 5 to 9. Basically, Matt Smith to the end of Clara. And then the final video will cover from Bill Potts all the way up to where we currently are right now, the end of season 13. You may be thinking, Reed, what's with the circles? We have the current Doctor in the middle. We will be starting obviously with series 1 of the reboot of Doctor Who. So this is the 9th Doctor. This orb, pondering the orb, there is a method to my madness. These blue cubes, these are going to become the companions to the Doctor, people who travel in the TARDIS regularly or somewhat regularly. The second circle around here is going to be major important characters. This third circle is going to be major important and or the silliest of monsters. Now, the color coding. Blue, that's just because I didn't have enough black paper to make them all black. These colors relate to the characters and or monsters' alignment and or relationship with the Doctor. Anything you see that is in green is generally good aligned. Anything in the yellow is dubious at best. And the red is just straight up evil. One more thing. A word has recently entered my dialect. Being Germa. However, I do not know if I can say this word on YouTube without getting absolutely crucified. Every time that I say the word Germa, I will be putting up, well, I'll be voiceovering it with the word Germa because of Germa. So every time that I say Germa, just know I mean the Germa, but I just can't say it on YouTube. Thank you, and good night. Now, shall we begin? Season 1. Technically, the 27th season of Doctor Who, however, the first season of New Who. This aired in 2005 after a brief 20-year intermission of Doctor Who where No Who was running. For these first seasons, all 4 seasons we will be talking about today, the showrunner was Russell T Davies. We start with episode 1. This is the world's first look back into Doctor Who and Doctor Who for the new generation. The beginning of Super Who-lock, all of it. And objectively, these first 2 episodes in specific, but also this whole season, is iconic. Firstly, we are introduced to a Miss Rose Tyler. Hello! Rose Tyler is a 19-year-old Londoner. She works in a clothing shop downtown, and I just have to say, there is a lot of Rose Tyler haters out there. However, I think she slays. I think she did more for the Doctor than literally any other character in this show. She was definitive of bringing the Doctor back to life and making Doctor Who so iconic. I would argue, apart from Donna Noble, she is the most iconic Doctor Who companion. If I were to describe her, I would probably say Girly Pop, Bad Wolf, and Germa. Little Girly Bob. We are also introduced to Miss Jacqueline Tyler, who is Rose Tyler's mother. Jackie Tyler is, like, iconic. She is so... Germa. Like, she needs a Juicy Couture tracksuit right now. She needs that and an aerobics class, and she is actually all set. We are also introduced to Mickey Smith. I do have longer Mickey Smith here because I couldn't be bothered to crop the photo properly. Mickey Smith is Rose Tyler's boyfriend. He is fine, I guess. They try really hard to characterize him in this season. I mean, as in give him a personality trait that isn't just Rose Tyler's boyfriend. How well they do it, that is a different question, but we start episode 1, and we see Rose Tyler over here, closing up at work, working hard or hardly working, and she goes to drop a lottery ticket down to the janitor who lives underneath the building in the back room set. Where did he go? Now, I don't know why he's not there, but I do know there are some awfully sus mannequins. Now, let me tell you, I would have seen this episode when I was maybe about 6 or 7 years old, and ever since then, I have done double takes of every single shop front ever. These mannequins around her start to move. These bad boys are called Ortons, and they're like personified plastic. They showed up in a classic Who story back in 1971, I believe, off the top of my head. This is their first appearance since then, and may I say, kind of an iconic villain for episode 1. Nothing too threatening. However, will make you reconsider your whole life. All these Ortons start slowly coming towards her, and then suddenly, a mysterious stranger grabs her hand. Arguably one of the most iconic lines in Doctor Who, apart from a few others. Run. And who is this? Who is this? This, my friends, is our first appearance of the Ninth Doctor, Mr. Christopher Eccleston. If I were to describe him in 3 ways, I would say is moody / SRS and covered in leather. Maybe the Doctor commits a crime. Maybe he blows up the whole shopping centre. Just maybe. Not a biggie. It's fine. The next day after Rose makes it home, Jackie over here is obviously distraught. Her daughter almost died, and she's pretty much saying, you need to go to the press. You can claim workers' comp. And then all of a sudden, there's a rat-a-tat-tat on the cat flap. And who is it? Rose also, in her venture to run last night, managed to steal one of the Auton's arms, in which Mickey now has and takes with him while he walks away. He's also here, like, loving and supporting Rose, but does leave to go and watch the football. So as much as Mickey does right, he does equally as much wrong. The Doctor catches a vibe, and him and Rose go running off to try and figure out what is happening to these Autons, what's going on. Mickey puts the plastic arm into a wheelie bin. Now, this is actually my favourite scene in all of Doctor Who. What an incredible scene for episode 1. I'll put it in here. The bin tries to eat him, and he becomes plastic. A few scenes later, the Doctor and Rose find out that he's plastic, end up sonic screwdrivering him until he blows up and or fall apart. But alas, real Mickey is alive, do not fret. Rose and the Doctor, after killing plastic Mickey, run into the TARDIS. And this is where one of the most iconic scenes in all of Doctor Who history begins. So yeah, I'm a gamer. I just ate, like, objectively way too many banana crisps, banana chips for all you Australians out there. And so I think I'm feeling a bit silly with it. Me and Matt Smith, we're gonna get through this together. Rose Tyler enters the TARDIS. This scene is iconic and it happens every single time the Doctor gets a new companion. And Rose Tyler walks into the TARDIS. She looks around. She walks back out of the TARDIS. Walks around it, walks back in. It's bigger on the inside. It's bigger on the inside. It's time for technology. Now, I would like to have a moment to talk about this eras of TARDIS. The TARDIS usually changes with every Doctor. However, for the Eccleston and Tennant eras, because they're so closely interlinked and their stories are all pretty much one, the TARDIS doesn't actually change, neither does the title sequence. This TARDIS is probably my favorite. It's so 2005, it's so grungy, dingy, dirty. I love it. We have a bit more tomfoolery in this episode, eventually finding out that the Nestene live underneath the London Eye. How the fuck did they get there? How did no one notice? Is no one, checking underneath the London Eye? It seems like a pretty important locale. We eventually throw the Autons into, there's no easy way, a large vat. The Doctor invites Rose Tyler back to the TARDIS and invites her to come travel with him. She says no. He explains that this is a spaceship and it can go anywhere in space, and she's like, that sounds pretty cool. However, I do have a boyfriend and I do have a mum that I kind of have to look after. And then he looks at her and says, it's also a time machine. Rose is just a girl. And what is a girl supposed to say to that? Rose says yes. The Doctor, however, does not invite Mickey Smith. He only invites Rose. So Rose is now running off to all space-time with a man she doesn't know and leaving her boyfriend with her mother in London. I said I was a Rose Tyler stan. I never said Rose Tyler was perfect. You guys also literally don't get it? I have tea and bickies. I literally have tea and bickies right now. We start episode 2, 5 million years in the future. The final days of planet Earth on a spaceship watching the Earth explode. This spaceship is full of luxury aliens. We are introduced to the face of Bo. The face of Bo is pretty ancient. I believe he is millions of years old. He also has testicles for hair. I do just need you to look at that. He has to get wheeled around places, which is kind of silly, I'm not gonna lie. We are also introduced to Cassandra. Now, you may be looking at this and thinking, what the fuck is that? And your answer would be a flat bit of flesh with a face. Cassandra is the last remaining human from Earth. The whole shtick with Cassandra was that she wanted to be beautiful, and so she kept making herself beautiful until she became this, the thinnest she could possibly be, literally a flat sheet of flesh with a face. Since she's literally gone beyond twink death, she has become something more. She's so flat. Her skin and body is so dehydrated. She needs constant moisturizing. Cassandra has a little water slave, :3, and we are also told that robot spiders are running around the ship. Other important things that happen this episode, they play a traditional Earth ballad, which does so happen to be toxic by Britney Spears. During this episode as well, that the Doctor mentions that he is in fact the last of the Time Lords. Eventually, the Doctor traces the silly little guys back to Cassandra. Cassandra ends up teleporting away, and the Doctor uses his sonic screwdriver and teleports her back to the ship, except she doesn't teleport back her little water slaves. So it's just her. And because she doesn't have her water slaves to moisturize her, she starts cracking and crumbling, and she actually just like straight up dissolves. And in some of the final minutes of this episode, we also learned the Doctor's home, Gallifrey, burned, much like Earth. You know where we land? We land in Cardiff. You may be thinking, why Cardiff? Literally, who gives a shit about Cardiff? And I regret to inform you that Cardiff actually is worryingly important to the plot of Doctor Who. Out of every fucking city we could be in, Cardiff? It has to be Cardiff. That we're in 1986. We meet two characters, Mr. Swede, I think his name is, and Gwyneth. I have a card for Gwyneth, if we want to focus. Gwyneth. Gwyneth is very Welsh. Also remember this face, she'll come up again. Gwyneth is very Welsh and also a housemaid. Dead people are getting possessed by ghosts. And I believe Gwyneth and Mr. What's his name? Mr. Sneed own a mortuary dead people factory where they keep the bodies. And that we find out that the people getting possessed are actually being possessed by gas. We also find out that Gwyneth is low-key psychic. She has a nice conversation with Rose about, like, I don't know, getting out there, having a bit of fun. Rose kind of low-key implies that she may be a little bit into the Doctor, which is kind of crazy when you think about it, because Rose Tyler is canonically 19, and the Doctor is firstly 900, but also Christopher Eccleston. And, like, he's like a cutie pie, but, like, he also does look like 50. Gwyneth also mentions sort of the fable of the big bad wolf to Rose, which, again, may or may not come up later. Gwyneth ends up giving her life by standing in, I can't believe these are 3 words that I actually have to say in succession to one another, the Cardiff Space-Time Rift. And I'm really upset to tell everyone that the Cardiff Space-Time Rift is important. Gwyneth ends up giving her life so the spirits can travel through her back to this spirit world. Kinda your stock standard episode. In this next 2-episode special, green aliens take over the English government. Welcome to Doctor Who, where aliens become the Prime Minister. If I had a nickel for every time that the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom became an alien, I would have 2 nickels, which isn't a lot, but it's funny that it happened twice. We open episode 4 with the Doctor and Rose landing back on Earth, back in 2005. And Rose turns to the Doctor and says, "How long have I been gone?" "A mere 12 hours. And she's like, "Okay, sick as fuck," and goes and runs off to see her mum. Jackie is like, "What? Where have you been? I thought you were dead. What is going on?" Then the Doctor comes in and is like, "Okay, so, sorry, my bad. It wasn't 12 hours, it was 12 months. What is he on, dude? What is he on? He has a spaceship that he has been flying for at least 800 years. At least 800. You would have thought by now he would have been getting good at it. It's revealed in a later episode. He failed his fucking TARDIS license, bro. The gamer chair. Anyway, an alien spaceship crash into the River Thames. Again, when I say this out loud, it sounds fucking insane. But just, like, just trust me. We also find out at around this time that the British Prime Minister is dead. Margaret Thatcher is dead. Ding dong, the wicked bitch is dead. She should have died 84 years ago. I need to get sillier. Also are introduced to another pretty important character, Harriet Jones. Let me get her portrait, shall I? I'm really in a bit of a mood. Maybe it's my bickies and my tea. At the moment, Harriet Jones is a somewhat unimportant government official. It's at about this time that we are introduced to the aliens who are currently living within the British government. The Slitheen. Now, the Slitheen, they are currently wearing the members of British Parliament like skin suits. And you may be thinking, Reed, how can you tell which member of the British government is a Slitheen and which is human? You will not be happy about the answer. Farts. I'm so real with you right now. The Slitheen are crazy backed up and have tremendous gas, my friend. Do not even joke, lad. The Slitheen, they literally just fart. That's how you know. It's about at this point when the Doctor and Rose are kind of investigating the spaceship that they get taken by the government and get arrested, technically, and brought to Downing Street. We are also introduced to the fact that the Doctor here has a job. He's employed. He's on the fucking payroll, man. He works for a body called UNIT. Rose also says to Mickey that Jesus Christ. Rose Tyler, bro. She says that being with the Doctor is better than having a boyfriend. To her boyfriend. Listen, I said Rose slayed. I didn't say that she slayed always. Mickey Smith, you're a bit of a wet sock, but you do deserve better. The Slitheen, they're just businessmen. They literally just want to turn a profit. And can you blame them? We're in a recession right now. Like, they literally just want to mine Earth for all it's worth. Can you blame them? Anyway, once again, like usual, we end up electrocuting the Slitheen, end up killing them. The Doctor saves the day. The Doctor also, maybe perhaps seeing that Rose Tyler is not treating her boyfriend the best, invites Mickey along the journey. And Mickey says no. He says he can't deal with it. It's too much for him. But he also says, don't tell Rose I said that. Jackie also finds out that the Doctor is an alien and so objectively doesn't really want Rose traveling with the Doctor. Now, episode 7, we get a bit silly with it. We end up in the far-off land of Utah. Objectively worse than Cardiff. What is it with this show and choosing the worst locales to base your episodes? Russell T Davies? What is your problem? We're gonna end up in fucking New Jersey, bro. Please though, actually. New Jersey-based episode need Gerard Way. We haven't had a Gerard Way crossover yet in Doctor Who, which is worrying. I'm more suspicious of a product if Gerard Way is not associated with it. Because everything I consume, he's there somehow. In a giant museum of alien stuff, pretty much. I don't hate many characters. This character, I want to call him a slur. If I could call him a slur, I probably would. I would find one that fit him and I would actually curb stomp this man. Ugh. Anyway, we are introduced to the museum of Henry Van Staten. He owns the internet. Rose goes with this guy who she's low-key like flirty vibes with. His name is Adam, but Adam is low-key a little bit annoying and also like a dweeb, but in like a slash negative way. And the Doctor is taken to see what Van Straten calls the Metaltron. We are introduced to the Dalek. The Dalek, you may remember, was the species the Doctor fought in the Time War where all of his people burnt. When the Time Lords burnt, all the Daleks burned with them. Every single Dalek in existence is supposed to be dead. One survived the Time War. Objectively, probably the biggest threat in Doctor Who. Which is why I've chosen a picture of a Dalek with a Christmas hat on. Daleks are very evil. Now, the Doctor is not very pleased to see this Dalek. Evidently, they killed all of his people. The Dalek's broken, it's battered, it is like destroyed, it's basically useless. It is not a killing machine anymore. The Doctor looks at it and goes, you can't kill. Then what are you good for? Your race is dead. Without the Doctor, in fact, wiped out the entire Dalek population at the end of the Time War. He was the one that killed them all. A Dalek is basically part of a human or a creature with all emotions apart from hatred removed. It is a creature literally born to hate. The only thing it can do is hate. Anyway, after Rose sees the Dalek getting beaten up, she kind of feels sorry for the war robot, and so she goes to it. After the Dalek pretty much, like, manipulates her a little bit, she ends up, like, touching it, like, just putting her hand on the Dalek. As Jerva Cat said, I'm alive, I survived, I'm revived. She kind of repowers the Dalek with the human touch, and starts basically going on a massive murder spree around the whole museum. And Von Straten, he's just such a cock. He orders everyone to keep the massive murder war robot alive. The Dalek turns to the Doctor at one point and says, I don't know what to do. I have no orders. The Doctor straight up looks at him and goes, you want orders? Kill yourself.
If you want orders, follow this one. Kill yourself.
Rose kind of tries to talk the Dalek down from the edge, and we kind of end up finding out that since Rose brought him back to, or it back to life, has a part of Rose in it too. It is the very thing it swore to destroy. It hates itself because it is part human. The Dalek, kind of upon realizing that it's part human, it hates itself. Literally, you want orders, kill yourself. It does. It blowed itself up. That guy that Rose was low-key floaty vibes with, the one who's a bit of a wet sock, Adam, we take him with us. Hello, so it turns out that actually there was a entire bit of footage, 2 episodes worth actually of footage, that just completely disappeared. It's gone. I can't find it anywhere. And I don't want to re-record it. So I'm going to give you the rundown. We take Floaty Boy with us to a locale called Satellite 5. Satellite 5 is basically this giant news station, and within this story, a couple of things happen. Number 1, Floaty Boy kinda sucks. She's just a little bit annoying. The Doctor ends up dumping him back on Earth with no explanation. Number 2, the Doctor shuts down all of Satellite 5. This may or may not have major repercussions later. Where's Rose's dad? And luckily for you, I have a solution. He's dead. In a hit and run. He's gone. He died back when Rose was quite young. I think he actually had the most loser way to die imaginable. It was one of their, well, Jackie and, his name is Pete, by the way, Pete Tyler. Jackie and Pete's friend's wedding day, and he went to go pick up a wedding present, a vase, which, by the way, crazy wedding present. Yeah, anyway, he got out of the driver's side of the car, except obviously, in the UK, the driver's side of the car is the left side, and also that is the side of the road that you drive on. So he pulled over, got out the car, and got hit by a car. It does more for Rose's character and backstory than it does for the overall plot, but I can summarize it pretty quickly for you. So Rose decides that she wants to go back in time to just see her dad. Not to do anything, not to save him, just to see him. And the Doctor's like, okay, you can go and see your dad the day he died, just like be there for him, but you cannot interfere because that is one of the events that is time locked. The idea of an event being time locked, it's a constant. It has to happen in time and space. Otherwise, the world ends, the galaxy explodes. There are some events that are so important that you just can't fuck with. And so they go to see Pete Tyler. By the way, Pete Tyler, he's kind of loser cool. Your Honor, I fucked up. Jackie Tyler is not a companion of the Doctor. She's simply just a girl. So we go back in time to watch Pete Tyler die, pretty much. When Rose stands there and watches him get hit by a car, she is pretty much stunned. She can't move. And so she turns to the Doctor and she says, can we try it again? And this second time, she goes up to him and she kneels down by his side and tells him it's going to be okay. And then she asks if she can do it again. What does Rose do this time? She saves his life. Pete Tyler is alive. Cue the episode. This episode, pretty much the long and short of it, is that we're at this wedding. Pete Tyler is now alive. Low-key flirty vibes with Rose, but he doesn't know she's her daughter. We also low-key learned that, listen, Pete and Jackie, they weren't necessarily happy. Anyway, long story short, time pterodactyls show up at the church to try and kill everybody because there's a break in the time rift. The time rift. Because Pete is alive when he should be dead. And eventually Pete figures out that firstly Rose is his daughter and also that he should be dead. And in the end, I'm pretty sure he either sacrifices himself or kills himself to basically save the whole world. Small pogs for Pete Tyler. We end up in the middle of the London Blitz. As in like World War II, Germany bombing London, London Blitz. But Rose Tyler is wearing, arguably, okay, it's kind of camp, one of those like 2005 women's cut figure-hugging tops with the Union Jack on it during the middle of the London Blitz. If she isn't serving it to the Germans, then literally I don't know what is. And the Doctor, and I quote, says to Rose, stay here, don't wander off. Now, I'm going to give you 3 guesses as to what Rose does. She looks up and she sees like a child with a gas mask on. Gas mask. Hit DJ, gas mask from my high school. So she climbs a building to go and save him. And during this time, the Doctor runs off to try and figure out why they landed here. He gets a mysterious phone call and a mysterious woman also shows up, says, it's not for you. She knows something. Rose Tyler climbs this building. She gets to the top. I can't enter inside the mind of Rose Tyler, and I think it's just like one neuron firing and like a picture of the doctor with like his shirt off. In my notes, I have it here as Rose climbs a blimp skull emoji. And the blimp takes off. During this time as well, the doctor follows that mysterious girl to a house. Turns out this mysterious girl, I think her name is Nancy, she takes care of orphans whose parents have either died during the Blitz or have just live on the street, and she raids random people's houses during bomb raids to eat their leftover food. Again, kinda anti-capitalist. Fuck you, Coles and Woolworths. Cheese should not be $10. Anyway, this mysterious gas mask kid shows up again, and I think it's time that we put him on the wall. This little freak shows up again at this house, and Nancy says that that's not exactly a child, and that if you touch the empty child, you will, and I quote, become just like him. Cut back to Rose Tyler, girly pop of the century, and she is saved from her blimp-related expedition by a mysterious, sexy, bisexual icon, Captain Jack. Captain Jack Harkness is literally the heartthrob of the century. This is Captain Jack Harkness. Captain Jack Hotness? Okay. Captain Jack is a bit of a flirt and a bit of a whore, and we find out that he is a time agent, or from the time agency, and he, under the impression that Rose is also from the time agency, tries to sell Rose a bit of alien scrap that he found. So at this point we also find out about the existence of nanogenes that are in the air of his ship, bugs that repair your skin. And Nancy sends the doctor over to the hospital, saying that he needs to talk to the doctor. Turns out the doctor is just like a medical doctor, but it also does happen to be Gaius from Merlin. And let me tell you, alright, if there is one thing that the BBC will do, it is reuse actors as much as they possibly can. I think Mycroft from Sherlock shows up in the show at least once, but also writes like 5 or 6 episodes. This doctor goes to see Gaius. There's a whole room full of like corpses, but they're not dead, they're all alive. They all have the exact same wounds and they all have these gas masks on their face. And then at the same time they all sit up and they ask, "Are you my mummy?" And at this point Gaius also like, it's actually kind of nasty, I'm going to be so real. The CGI for these early seasons is like, obviously of its time, right? But is like, actually kind of freakish. Gaius becomes an empty child. Rose and Jack rock up because Jack takes Rose to the Tula warship, which is the ship that crashed that he's trying to sell. Meet each other. Jack leads eventually the Doctor and Rose out to the Tula warship that is about to get bombed by the Germans in about an hour's time. The Doctor opens the warship to find out it's already been opened, and that it's not a warship, it is basically an ambulance. Nanogenes. Remember the nanogenes from earlier that Jack used to repair Rose? The empty child was wandering around and this Tula warship crashed onto him. But since this was technically an ambulance ship, the nanogenes tried to repair and heal the kid, but they've never seen a human before. So they just took their best guess at what a human would be and made the empty child. And so every time they come across another human that isn't written like the empty child is, they try to fix them and make them like this empty child, hence the gas mask spreading. But also because of that, they have a lower, I guess, neural connection. So this kid pretty much is doing the last thing it remembers, looking for its mummy. And Nancy is also here, and we find out that Nancy isn't actually this kid's sister, but in fact his mother. And eventually the Doctor convinces Nancy to admit that the kid is hers. Turns out the last thing the kid needed to become human again was love. And so the nanogenes restore not only the empty child, but also everyone they have turned so far. Now again, this next episode isn't as important to the overall plot. I'll kind of just touch on some of the major things that you need to know from this episode. This episode focuses, we're back in Wales, actually, and the Slovene that we tried to kill back in the European government, turns out one of them survived. And she is currently like the small town, like a mayor of a small Welsh city, and she is trying to make a power plant explodes so she can ride the nuclear wave out of the solar system because she's stranded here to get to another planet. The Doctor, Rose, and now Jack, who is tagging along for the ride, land back on Earth. They're back in Cardiff because the Doctor has to charge his TARDIS up again at the Cardiff space-time rift. They catch a scent of this Slitheen and they end up taking her in to the TARDIS to deliver her back to her people because the Doctor's like, listen, I'll just drop you home. Turns out, this Slitheen has committed a war crime against the Slitheen people and or the Shadow Proclamation. The Shadow Proclamation is literally just the space government, and anyone who has committed a crime against the galaxy, they make the rules, they make the law. They're like Hamilton. So if this Slitheen goes back to her home, she will be executed. And so there's a bit of this moral dilemma between the party about what they should do. And eventually they're all kind of like, she did kind of kill half of the UK government. I think we're just going to take her home. But the TARDIS has not finished charging up yet, so the Doctor takes the Slitheen out for a nice fancy dinner, and Rose and Mickey also go out to dinner because they're back in Cardiff. Mickey is here, they can have a chat. Mickey low-key goes off at Rose for literally abandoning him here and running off with another man. But at the same time, also says that he does have a hotel booked, so they can go and stay in the hotel for the night. But also at the same time, he has been low-key on the down low, seeing another woman. The Slitheen eventually tries to convince the Doctor that she just wants a normal, humble human life. The Slitheen makes a rookie mistake. She looks into the heart of the TARDIS. You remember how I mentioned that TARDISes are living things? They're not built, they're grown. TARDISes have a heart. It is the very essence of time itself, I guess, in a way. And so she looks into the heart of the TARDIS, becomes an egg. She reverts back to her most primal form. Rose, Jack, and the Doctor. We leave Mickey back on Earth as usual. These three don't land anywhere. They actually get kind of kidnapped in the TARDIS. The episode starts and all three of them wake up on a game show. The Doctor is in a murder version of Big Brother, in which if you get voted out of the house, you die. Rose is in a murder version of The Weakest Link, whereas in if you are the weakest link, you die. And Jack is getting plastic surgery done because he's sexy. These are the two murder robots. Listen, they're kind of serving. Like, she kind of has the waist for it, if I'm honest. Those rotund boobs stuck on like paper plates. This lavish, robotic woman scurry to me like rats. The Doctor obviously is incredibly suspicious about this. He ends up breaking out of the House of Big Brother and goes off to find Rose. Now, Rose is struggling at Intergalactic Weakest Link. She may have seen the stars, but she probably didn't get a very good grade in her GCSEs. Anyway, she ends up actually losing the game of Weakest Link, and the Doctor eventually breaks into the room where they're recording the game. She runs over to him and does in fact get shot. She gets disintegrated. This space station they're on now is basically designed to permanently broadcast game shows, thousands of them, and it's illegal for people at home not to watch. We also find out that this is Satellite 5. Turns out, after the Doctor stopped the news broadcast, the world went into shambles, and they needed something to be put in place, and that was these game shows. There is a host up in the control room, and it's just a lady, but she's been hooked up spider style to like the mainframe, and she keeps making comments about how the Masters keep telling them to do this, or the Masters will not know. And eventually the Doctor and Jack, because they have broken out together and Rose is remembered dead, and the Doctor throws up a hissy fit because he's like, what the fuck? Why are you literally killing people for a game show? Hunger Games style. Eventually a solar flare comes by, which limits the telekinesis, the brain connection between whoever the Masters are and the woman who's hooked up to the mainframe. So she can finally speak for herself, and she talks to the Doctor and she says, my Masters are scared of you. My Masters fear the Doctor. There is a security breach. Is that a reference? And that she hid the Doctor, Rose and Jack inside the games because her Masters couldn't track them. Jack and all of his tinkering glory finds out that the weaponry that all of our contestants and Rose Tyler were shot with was in fact not a real gun. Not a Nerf gun, but a secret third thing. It's actually a teleporter. And so they ship themselves and teleport to a Dalek ship. Now you may be thinking, Reed, I thought the vital part of Dalek lore was that there was only one of these fuckers left. And the answer is there is only one of those fuckers left, or there was supposed to be. Now the Doctor is pissed the fuck off. As you can imagine, these are the people who literally wiped out his entire population, and he was content with the fact that they died along with the Time Lords. But knowing that the loss of life was only of Time Lord, we find out that it is because of Dalek. I think his name is Dalek Sec. Daleks have names. Well, at least the important ones have names. That Rose touched back in episode 3 titled Dalek. And we find out that he didn't die. He transported away. And using the knowledge he had, he was pretty much driven to insanity, but he rebuilt the Dalek population. So they teleport back onto Satellite 5 and intend to use a sonic wave to eviscerate all of the Dalek ships. But as well as eviscerating the Dalek ships, it will probably eviscerate Satellite 5. So the Doctor pretends to send Rose into the TARDIS to go get something, but actually he sends the TARDIS back to Earth. So now we have the Doctor and Jack stranded on Satellite 5, Rose on Earth. She leaves the TARDIS and is obviously stuck there because she can't fly the thing. She meets up with Mickey and Jackie, and they're all like, thank God you're home. But Rose's plan is to open the TARDIS and look into the heart of the TARDIS, control it from there. Basically speak to its soul. Cut back. These two bad boys. The Daleks are on Satellite 5. Jack, he gets shot. He's down, he's out. The Doctor is fiddling away, trying to get the sonic wave to work, when the TARDIS shows back up. And who walks out? Rose Tyler. But it's not really Rose Tyler, is it? It's Rose Tyler who has looked into the heart of the TARDIS. It is Rose Tyler with the soul of the TARDIS inside of her. She glows, she's ethereal. Literally post-ovulation clarity. Oh, I did forget to mention, Jack does give the Doctor an old man Yowie kiss. What inspires Rose, by the way, to go back to the Doctor is because she realizes that someone has set this up for her. Remember the words bad wolf? We've seen them a couple of times through here. This convinces Rose that something is playing her cards, that she has to go back and save the Doctor. Basically, with the power of the TARDIS, the Doctor is able to set off this sonic wave, but before he does that, Rose has the power of the TARDIS in her. She will burn up and die with all of that power, because she has the whole time vortex inside of her. Get it out of her, the Doctor gives her a little kissing on the lips. We finally get a little kiss, except this isn't a kiss of romance in any way. This is a kiss so the Doctor can absorb the time vortex inside of him instead. With that, the Daleks manage to explode. The Doctor carries Rose back into the TARDIS, leaving Jack behind. In these final moments of season 1, we see Christopher Eccleston, the 9th Doctor, regenerate. He literally has the dog in him because of all of the time vortex he's absorbed. It kills him. We see the first regeneration of New Who, and we are introduced to the 10th, arguably most iconic Doctor, and the Doctor we will be following for the rest of this video, David Tennant, the 10th Doctor. Welcome to season 2. I would argue season 2 of Doctor Who is my favourite Doctor Who season. It's got my favourite Doctor, David Tennant, love of my life, there he is, as well as Rose Tyler, who is probably one of my favourite companions. Rose, who, keep in mind, doesn't really know much about the Doctor still. She has just seen the Doctor regenerate for the first time, with no explanation. Not knowing anything, he completely changed his face. So they crash land on Earth, and the Doctor pops out of the TARDIS in the Eccleston outfit, looking dishevelled as always, and might I just say, David Tennant in this fit. Anyway, so the Doctor ends up passing out because of he hasn't quite finished his regeneration nap yet. Now, this is a Christmas special, by the way, so the aliens are Christmas themed, but turns out that Harriet Jones, remember Harriet Jones from earlier? She is now the Prime Minister of Britain. Good for her. So happens that the TARDIS and Dr. Lendon, as they often do, in the middle of an alien invasion. There is a bunch of like Santa animatronics, wandering around with trumpets that also happen to be guns, trying to kill the general human population. And also Jackie's Christmas tree is an alien. Approximately 1/3 of the human population, randomly, stands up, walks outside, and goes and walks to the nearest tall ledge. Harriet Jones is like, what the fuck is happening? Rose is like, doctor, please wake up, because keep in mind, he's still taking a nap. He's getting his 8 hours of beauty sleep in. And the aliens, which we learn are called the Sycorax, send a message down to Earth saying, hey, hand over your planet or we make the 1/3 of your population jump. The Sycorax are going to make them jump. Respect your elders, do a flip. That's so Sherlock Holmes of them. Jesus Christ. Harriet Jones and her sort of onslaught, her enclave, if you will, of government officials are teleported upon the Sycorax ship in order to kind of plead for the human's life. And at the same time, the Sycorax sense the TARDIS. So they teleport the TARDIS also onto the Sycorax ship. The Doctor's taking a power nap. Who is in the TARDIS? Rose Tyler. At this point, when the Sycorax are about to make everyone jump, that the Doctor shows up. The timing, perfect, as usual. Anyway, turns out all he needed was a good cup of tea, and what is his first priority, apart from the aliens? He turns to Rose Tyler, looks at her and says, am I ginger? And she says, no, you're just kind of brown. And then he goes, damn, I wish I was ginger. Which is how you know he's a fucking alien. In his right mind, why the fuck would you want to be ginger? We are yet to have a ginger doctor. Maybe it's a good thing. It also turns out that the Sycorax are controlling the human population via something called blood control. It also turns out it's nothing more than hypnosis. You can't hypnotize someone to kill yourself.
Kill yourself.
And in order to fight for the world, the Doctor offers the leader of the Sycorax a duel. Literally spelled command duel. Duel pod? He fucking smokes one, bro, with the Sycorax. He has a duel with the leader of the Sycorax. His hand does get cut off and falls off the side of the Sycorax ship. He just grows it back. It does also grow back because it's in the middle of his Time Lord regeneration. Eventually, the Doctor does win this fight and tells the aliens to fuck off. And he does say, and I quote, not bad for a guy in his gym jams. Listen, I haven't heard the word gym jams in actually so long, and when I heard that, I giggled out loud. Anyway, back on Earth, the Doctor congratulates Harriet Jones for becoming Prime Minister, and when he's about to leave, Harriet contacts, it's one of the two, either Unit or Torchwood, and tells them to blow up the alien spaceship. And let me tell you, the Doctor is not happy about them trying to blow up the alien spaceship. And he goes up to her second in command, and he whispers in his ear and says, does she look tired to you? And it turns out that because he said that, a rumor starts that Harriet Jones is deathly ill, and he pretty much removes her from government by association. And also, this episode, we do get the Doctor deciding on his brand new outfit. Listen, when, the right page of, I think 13, maybe 14, Comic-Con came around to my city, and I was like, Dad, I want to go as a 10th Doctor. And he, in all his 10th Doctor love and glory, 100% agreed with me. And we bullied my sister into going as a weeping angel, like full cardboard wings and everything. Loki went crazy. Anyway, so what I'm saying is this is the costume that I purchased when I was about 14 to cosplay the 10th Doctor. In episode 2, we visit, objectively an iconic location, New Earth. More specifically, we visit New York. Or more specifically, New York. There's been 14 other New Yorks before this New York, but alas, we're here. And the Doctor and Rose land on New Earth. We have a beautiful shot looking up at the skyline of a hospital, and we learn that pretty much they have found a cure for almost everything. The Doctor and Rose both agree to go and investigate this massive, 35-story hospital. Meanwhile, cut to the side, and who do we see back again after literally exactly one season? Cassandra. Cassandra is back, and she's hiding in the catacombs. She also has, remember that water slave that we had? He's back, but in a different form. This water slave has about 0.3 brain cells, and his only need is to serve and water Cassandra. Now, Cassandra sees that the Doctor and Rose are back on New Earth, and she has a master plan. Her master plan is to kidnap Rose Tyler, and which, let me add, she very quickly succeeds. Rose is like, hi, you literally turned to pulp last time I saw you. How the hell are you here? And Cassandra says that her eyes and mouth were salvaged from the wreckage, and that the piece of flesh she's currently using for her sheet is, in fact, her backside as opposed to her front side. So she is literally a walking ass, dude. Now, you may be thinking, why the hell would she want to kidnap Rose Tyler? And the answer is, Rose Tyler is smoking, and she wants to transport her consciousness into Rose Tyler's body. Which again, she does succeed at rather quickly. And as soon as she, saying the words enters Rose Tyler is a bit of a dubious topic, but as soon as she enters Rose Tyler, she literally looks at herself in the mirror and says, and I quote, "Oh no, I'm a chav." Crazy sentence to say, not technically incorrect. Cut away. The Doctor is currently in the hospital on New to the Power of 15, York. Who does he meet? But it's like a family reunion here in this episode. The face of Bo, and he is dying of old age. The face of Bo, we find out, has lived for thousands, if not millions of years. And finally, his time has come. And there's a legend going around that pretty much says, when the face of Bo dies, he will meet a traveller and will tell his last secret. And the Doctor is like, you can't tell me your secret yet, so you cannot die. Which honestly, flawless logic from him. Imposter Rose and the Doctor reunite. She has a bit of a weird, posh, chabby accent. And she does in fact kiss the Doctor sloppy style on the mouth. This is now the second kiss that Rose and the Doctor have shared, and he is utterly flabbergasted. We also cut away to a scene, and we are introduced to the Sisterhood. There we go, the nurses of this hospital. And we cut away to them in the catacombs, and we see them talking to like a gurgling, gross, green plagued human in like a pod, and there's thousands of these pods. The Doctor and Imposter Chav Rose, as the Doctor's picked up on something not being quite right here. They shouldn't have the cures for these diseases this early in the timeline. They find what's called intensive care, which does so happen to be the chambers that the cat ladies were just at. And they find thousands and thousands of grown humans, technically clones, kind of like living, breathing organisms with little consciousness, and they're using them to breed and grow diseases in order to find cures. This obviously is not very humane, but the two sisters pretty much excuse this by saying they're working for the greater good, and that these people, because they're not technically people, don't have a consciousness. At this point, the Doctor also asks the cat lady what they've done to Rose. So he knows that Chav Imposter Rose is in fact an imposter. In fact, I would argue he calls a team meeting. The Doctor pretty much says that Rose is vented, and the cat ladies say that we did not make Rose the imposter. The Doctor then finds out that Imposter Rose is actually Cassandra. Just perfectly at this time, all the plague people start to break out, and the Doctor and Cassandra / Imposter Rose have a bit of a back and forth where the Doctor's like, hey, take Cassandra out of Rose, and Cassandra's like, okay, and then becomes the Doctor, and then Rose is like, take Cassandra out of the Doctor, and Cassandra becomes one of the plague slaves, and it's like a whole back and forth until Cassandra ends up back in Rose, and eventually the Doctor has a genius idea, which he quite often has, and he gets every single cure in the entirety of this hospital, puts them into a giant vat, and sprays that giant vat over all of the plagued people, basically instantly curing them and making them humans again. Problem solved, right? Wrong. What about Imposter Rose? The Doctor and Rose Cassandra have a bit of a conversation and eventually agree upon the fact that Cassandra can enter the willing body of her water slave, which he openly agrees to. Except she then realizes that because he is of lower consciousness, he's dying at a rapid rate, and her last dying wish is to go and see herself when she used to be beautiful. Why are we kind of slaying? I'm kind of giving Missy. I'm kind of giving Mary Poppins? Episode 2 follows the Doctor and Rose, back to her normal self by the way, as we go to Victorian London, or better off, Victorian Scotland. And there's a funny bit that I really quite like here in which the Doctor turns Scottish, but actually what it is, it's just David Tennant speaking fucking normally, because he puts on a British accent for the whole show. Nance is Scottish, and they end up meeting Queen Victoria, and the entire episode, well, firstly, Rose is called a slut like 4 or 5 times, because she's dressed in like, basically short dungarees and a pink little like short top, and they're all like, the wench over here. Listen, Rose Tyler, you're kind of serving, but not for the time period. Post, what's his name? Alvin? It's not Alvin. not Edward. I can't remember what her husband's name is. We meet Queen Victoria post-husband's death, and we find out that she is going to their basically holiday home, and which her husband used to go to every year, and to sharpen this diamond. Anyway, turns out it's werewolves. Just throwing it out there. It's werewolves. And we do have a massive werewolf-based fight. Nothing too crazy. We throw some garlic around. We throw some moonlight around. In the end, it turns out that the diamond, Albert, that's his name, Albert, turns out that putting this refined diamond into this contraption that the recently deceased Albert has made targets or channels moonlight, and they aim it at the werewolf, and the werewolf like T-poses magical girl transformations into Ash. The werewolf becomes Ash. So we solve the werewolf problem. However, it is heavily implied in this episode that Queen Victoria now has werewolf blood or lycanthrope blood in her, and that the entire royal descendants are also lycanthropes. After Doctor and Rose leave, we see a scene with Queen Victoria, and they're at this place called Torchwood House. She starts up practically a secret service to protect the world from aliens. Episode 4 has Uther from Merlin in it, which is, if you're keeping track, the second actor from Merlin that we currently have in BBC's Doctor Who. Cut to a high school, modern day, 2006. The Doctor is a high school physics teacher named Mr. Smith. Now, for those of you unattained to the name Mr. Smith, Mr. Smith is the name, or John Smith, name that the Doctor goes by whenever he needs a human alias. It is the most generic-ass name on the planet, but it's kind of like that for a reason. He's used John Smith throughout all of Classic Who. Also, my dad's last name is Smith, so just saying, you never quite know. Have you ever seen me and the Doctor in the same room? Literally didn't think so, look at me. We also see that Rose Tyler is cosplaying a lunch lady. Why are they here, by the way? It turns out Mickey Smith has been the agent on the inside, and he actively Googles and tries to find mysteries on Earth for the Doctor and Rose to come and help and sort out. Partially so he can see his girlfriend. Reminder, they're dating. Now, we also see a small scene of Rose Tyler helping out with the canteen ladies, and one of the ladies getting covered in a vat of oil and disintegrating. Hashtag just lunch lady things. Cut to the school at night. Dr. Rose and Mickey are all here going to investigate, trying to find out what the hell is up. Who else is here, you may be asking? If it isn't Sarah Jane Smith! Now, again, for those of you unattained, Sarah Jane Smith is not only the most popular companion of the Doctor to date. Sarah Jane Smith was a companion, I believe, of the 4th and 5th Doctor, or it may have been the 3rd and the 4th. She is infamous among fans. She is the companion of Doctor Who. She rocks up to school because she's also caught hold of this mystery, and as we learn later on, has been trying to find the Doctor for all of these years. She is in a similar boat to Rose, where she was desperately and hopelessly in love with the Doctor. Sorry, she was a companion of the 3rd and the 4th Doctor, not the 4th and the 5th. Sarah Jane Smith wanders around the school, and what does she find? The TARDIS. And who ominously stands behind her? That's right, it's the Doctor. We also learn at this time that there are giant bats at the school. I'm talking like the teachers turned into bats. Their goal is to use the children to crack, like, basically the question of life. That who does Sarah Jane Smith have with her? Who does she have with her? Not only the best character in all of Doctor Who, that's right, literally K9. K9 is a robot dog. How sick is that? A couple of realizations. Number 1, Mickey realizes that in this situation, he is the tin dog. Number 2, Rose realizes that the Doctor has a habit of leaving people behind. This giant math problem that the kids are trying to crack is called the Scasis paradigm. I also want to mention that King Uther from Merlin is like the head teacher, so he is a Krillitane, he is one of the bats. The bats try to convince the Doctor to try and solve the math problem instead, because his giant Time Lord brain could solve it in like seconds. Instead, he literally smashes the computer. Anti-AI king, man. There is then a massive battle, a massive chase sequence between the Doctor and the gang and the Krillitane, and eventually what happens is that love of my life, K9, has to stay behind to literally blow up the school. The Doctor asks Sarah if she wants to stay in the TARDIS, and she says no. And spoiler alert from here, the spin-off series called Sarah Jane started airing, and then instead of Sarah joining, Mickey Smith asks to join. And let me tell you, Rose Tyler is not happy about this. Secondary reminder, they're supposed to be in love. I just want to keep reminding you guys of that. These two are supposed to be in love. And she ends up asking Sarah Jane, and she's like, yo, should I stay? And Sarah says that some things are worth getting your heart broken for. How fucked up is that? Dude, this is literally, he's the Riz Meister. Anyway, the Doctor also fixes up K9 for Sarah. So now those two can run off and live happily ever after. K9, I literally am in love with you. He's so silly. We have Rose Tyler, Mickey Smith, who is now part of the TARDIS crew, all land on this 5th century abandoned spaceship. Except it's got an 18th century fireplace in it. There's his fireplace, and the Doctor stands by the fireplace and pulls a little lever, and the fireplace turns around, and he gets transported to 18th century France and literally meets Marie Antoinette, and there is a clockwork monster under her bed. And the whole basis of this episode is that there are these clockwork creatures that keep haunting Marie Antoinette. It turns out that the spaceship that they're on, they keep finding these human organs. Turns out those are the organs of Marie Antoinette that they are being used to propel the ship. The clockwork creatures have to wait until Marie Antoinette turns like 18 or something like that in order to harvest her organs and use them to continuously power the ship. It's like a constant time loop where they have to keep going back in time to get her organs to power the ship for another 18 years. And once it's 18 years are out, they have to then go back to get the organs from her again. You know what I am giving? I'm giving Mary from Our Flag Means Death. That's what I'm giving right now. These episodes introduce one of the major villains in the entirety of Doctor Who, and surprisingly the first time we see them in Modern Who. Something dodgy happens to the TARDIS, undisclosed what it is, and Rose, Mickey, and the Doctor land on Earth. It's not Earth, it's a parallel universe. Everything's pretty much the same, apart from, what's that? Literally a blimp in the air, and also Pete Tyler is alive, and just so happens to be a millionaire. You cannot travel to parallel universes, that's fucked up. You will ruin the space-time continuum if you do that. And so he's like, guys, just stay here. And then Rose is like, nuh-uh. And the Doctor's like, the fuck you mean nuh-uh? And Rose is like, I want to go see my dad. We introduced to Jackie and Pete Tyler. This time, Pete Tyler is a billionaire who is in charge of like a leading health soda company. These two have a struggling marriage and they are not happy. And it is Jackie Tyler's 40th birthday. Pete Tyler's company is at least some part owned or he's close friends with a character called Mr. Lumic. Now, Mr. Lumic is in a wheelchair. He is on the final days of his life, but he will not let that stand. If you look closely, Jackie and everyone else in this universe has a little earpiece in. Dr. Lumic has these giant robots, which he needs approval from the UN to run. The UN do not give him approval. He gets rather rapidly pissed off. As I mentioned previously, it's Jackie Tyler's birthday. They're hosting a massive party. How do the Doctor and Rose plan to get into this party? They become waitresses. Lumic runs a company called Cybus Industries. But these iron creatures, these human creatures, he intends to use to make himself, in some way or another, immortal. Since they haven't been approved by the UN, he decides to stage an attack. We learn that Rose Tyler in this universe is a dog. What is that? Stomping their way towards the house. The Doctor looks them right in the eyes and literally says, oh shit, it's the Cybermen. If you have only watched Modern Who, these will not ring a bell to you. If you've watched literally any of Classic Who, the Cybermen are one of the most significant and important Doctor Who villains. Look at them! I feel like Charlie XCX would fuck around with the Cybermen. The Cybermen are low-key kind of My Chemical Romance Danger Days coded. Cybermen go in the red section. And you may be thinking during all of this, what the hell has happened to Mickey Smith? Don't worry, I've got your back. Mickey Smith went out to find his grandmas, and at this time, Mickey gets kidnapped by a band of hooligans. Turns out that the Mickey in this world is called Ricky. These guys are almost like an activist group who are generally against Cybus Industries. Unfortunately, Jackie Tyler gets kidnapped by the Cybermen, and Pete, Rose, the Doctor, and then at this point, Mickey and his band of hooligans all manage to run and escape, while everyone at the party is left to be and I quote, upgraded. What a Cyberman actually is, it's a human, or more so a human brain, shoved into a metal suit, and then all of their emotions are turned off. So they have like an emotional inhibitor, which basically removes all semblance of happiness or pain or self-worry. They are almost like literally a hive mind. They're all connected to the network, dude. They're plugged in. Cybermen see themselves as an upgrade to humanity. I guess humanity's final form. The band of hooligans and our crew decide to go to Loomis Industries, both to hold Dr. Loomis accountable, but also to try and get Jackie Tyler back. Doctor and a character called Mrs. Moore, who is part of the band of hooligans, go into the catacombs. Mickey and another guy, he's blonde, I call him Blondie for now. Mickey and Blondie decide to go directly to the Loomis blimp to try and override the system, and Rose and Pete decide to pretend to be some of the brainwashed people entering Cyrus Industries. So you remember those earpods that we had? Well, those are basically currently overriding the neural system of all these people, turning their brains off so they're mindlessly walking into these giant factories that will chop their brain out and turn them into a Cyberman. Eventually, when they get inside of the factory, a Cyberman comes up to Pete Tyler and says, "Are you Pete Tyler?" And he says, like, affirmative, and the Cyberman is like, "I remember you. I'm Jackie Tyler." And my man cannot keep it together. He starts thrashing, he starts acting out. And the Cyberman literally is like, "Lol, I got you. I'm nothing. I'm literally just a bit of metal." They are then taken to Dr. Lumic. Dr. and Mrs. Moore basically get pranked underneath the Lumic factory, and then Mickey and Blondie over here go up his head office, the blimp, try to find the code to pretty much exploit all the Cybermen. In the end, the Doctor, Rose, Pete, and Mr. Moore end up in the same room with Mr. Lumic, and they find out that Mr. Lumic's goal here, he's dying, and he plans to use these Cybermen as a final upgrade to humanity to escape not only his own death, but everyone's death. What ends up happening is he gets pranked by his own creations, and he doesn't really want to become the Cyberman, but the Cybermen are like, no, you have to be upgraded too. So they turn Mr. Lumic into the cyber leader. Doctor ends up conveying to Mickey the code that will pretty much turn off all the Cybermen's emotional inhibitors, and all of these Cybermen literally wail in pain until they die. All except Dr. Lumic, the cyber leader. Our band of heroes runs to the same blimp that Mickey and Blondie are currently in, trying to climb this ladder, but who's there gripping on for dear life at the bottom? It's Mr. Lumic. And literally, in the end, the solution, as is the solution to most episodes, is sonic screwdrivering the hell out of that rope ladder, eventually leading Dr. Lumic to fall into the burning building that is his Cyberman factory. Then who else stays here? Mickey Smith. Mickey Smith says that here he's got a grandma to look after, and they've got a world full of Cybermen to save. This world is better for him, there's nothing left. And this is officially when Rose and Mickey finally, for the love of God, after a season and a half, break up. Episode 8, again, is one of these kind of just Monster of the Week episodes. Nothing too crazy happens. The generalized premise is that we go back to the 80s, the 80s? Whenever the Queen was coronated. It's the day before the Queen's coronation, and everyone on this street has a TV. However, TVs were not commonplace during this time. People's faces are being eaten by the TV. The main takeaway from this episode is that we see a couple of other scenes between the Doctor and Rose, where we start to see how much the Doctor really cares for Rose, but alas, in the end, like usual, we save the day. Turns out there is a species of alien who lives inside the TV and feasts off of people's faces. Episodes 9 and 10 are where we start to get a little bit metaphysical, a little bit astral, a little bit intense. Now, you may be wondering, Reed, you know what we haven't seen here yet? We haven't seen the devil from the Bible. Well, do I have the 2 episodes special for you? The Doctor and Rose land on an alien spaceship, and we also meet a race of people called the Ood. The Ood are, no easy way to say this, they're a slave race. Their only goal in life is to serve humanity. We also learn about something called Friends of the Ood, which are basically Ood liberators. We introduced to a cast of colourful characters on this spaceship, and we learn that the spaceship that they're on is currently orbiting a black hole, but that should not be possible. something called a gravity funnel here that is keeping them from getting sucked into the black hole. And there's a power source 10 kilometers under the ground that they're trying to get to, either to harvest or just to investigate what it is. It's at this point in time a little bit of like an earthquake, nothing too crazy, but what does happen is the room that TARDIS is in breaks off and flies into the black hole. The Ood are genuinely a pretty good race of people. They're chill as hell. They keep saying some sussy things, such as the beast and his army will come and strike a war against God. That's also what I say to all of my homeboys. We also kind of low-key find out that the Ood are being controlled by something that we're not quite sure which. The Doctor agrees to go down under the earth to try and find out what this signal is. The Ood at this point also start entering their horde mentality era. They start acting like a posse and start literally trying to kill everyone and saying, I have been sealed for eternity, but no more. Anyway, long story short, it turns out it's literally the devil from the Bible. Like, straight up, the devil from the Bible. And the Doctor is convinced Satan is not real, that it's some being that has convinced itself it's Satan, or it's trying to put on the perception of Satan. But it is not like the astral being that is Satan. Now, this question is never actually answered, whether or not it's Satan. The Doctor, when asked what was down in the pit, never quite answers, which implies that he is in heavy denial. Back up on the space station, the Ood start acting a bit too silly and start literally chasing people around the space station, trying to kill them all. The devil-clad Ood let the space guys and Rose escape in an escape pod, but Rose realizes they're not letting them escape. The devil's trying to get back to a populated location. Eventually, like usual, Doctor saves the day. The gravitational pull pulls the escape pod back to like the planet. Basically what happens is the Doctor wins the battle of wit with the devil, gets his TARDIS back, and like runs away with Rose. The Ood say something a bit suspicious about Rose Tyler dying in battle. Episode 11, I refuse to watch. Episode 11 is titled Love and Monsters, arguably one of the worst episodes of Doctor Who ever. It was a fan-written episode that was altered and turned into a real episode, which is a cool way to involve the community. It's still pretty shit, so I won't watch it. It has no greater impact on the plot. You can go watch it yourself if you really want to. Fuck Love and Monsters. Episode 12, we are in the far-off year of London 2012, and it is the 2012 Olympics. Now, there's a funny thing that happened here where I'm pretty sure Matt Smith ended up carrying the 2012 Olympic torch for a short period. 2012, arguably an iconic year. No wonder they chose 2012. The London Olympics, My Chemical Romance's Danger Days, The True Lies of Fabulous Killjoys got released. No, it didn't. They broke up. Never mind. Maybe 2012 was a shit year. There is a small child on this street with an attitude and a drawing addiction. And you may be thinking, Reed, that was just me 4 years ago. And yes, it was, but I did not kidnap children with my drawings. This kid kidnaps children with her drawings. Also, Maggie from Good Omens is in this episode. The Doctor Who cinematic universe is just as influential as Fortnite. Doctor Who needs a Fortnite flowchart. This kid keeps drawing drawings and kids keep disappearing, but only of the kids that she's drawing. Turns out she's getting possessed by these particles, and they feed off of family and love. The finale of this episode is that this girl watches the TV, ends up drawing the Olympic Stadium, and every single person in the Olympic Stadium disappears. Anyway, the Doctor ends up carrying the Olympic torch in episode, which is pretty silly, and they send these little guys back on their way. Now we can finally get to the two finale episodes of this season. So the Doctor and Rose land back on Earth about 9 months after they last left. Nothing too crazy, but the TARDIS has a funny habit of taking the Doctor and Rose not where they want to go, but where they need to be. They rock up back at Jackie's place, and Jackie is like, Rose, you're just in time. Your grandpa's about to come. And Rose is like, my grandpa is dead. And Jackie's like, yeah, watch this. And then we see something which we call ghost shifts. Like, army of ghosts appear. And they hang around for like a couple of minutes, and the Doctor's like, no one's freaking out. And Jackie's like, well, they've been here for a couple of months. It turns out this is happening all over the world. Twice a day or so, these ghosts appear for a few minutes and then disappear. They don't do anything. They don't say anything. They just hang around. Cut to Torchwood. Read you guys and Doctor Who viewers alike. You may remember the name Torchwood from Queen Victoria, and now they're in Carnaby Wharf, which is like the real big tower in the middle of London. The Torchwood Institute are controlling these ghost shifts. We see a girl and a guy go off for a bit of a snog. On shift, might I ask. Which, listen, if you're gonna have a snog, I may as well do it on company time. And they end up walking into somewhere they should not be walking, come back out with little Cybermen earphones in their ear. The Doctor eventually traces these ghost shifts back to the Torchwood Institute at Canary Wharf, and he warps his whole TARDIS there. But, listen, Jackie Tyler is bored. It is not just Rose and the Doctor like he suspects. She did hop on. The Doctor lands at the Torchwood Institute and he walks out, and the entire institute is there clapping at him and congratulating him. And they say, "Oh, Doctor, well, welcome here, but also, where is your companion?" At which he pulls out Jackie Tyler and says, "Well, this is Rose." And they get shown around the institute, and he's all like, "Well, what the fuck is up with these ghost ships, by the way?" And they're like, "Don't worry about it, we'll show you later." They take the Doctor and Jacqueline to ponder the orb, and it's like this massive floating metal orb that apparently technically is nothing. It has no matter, it has no volume, it's got no frequency, it's just nothing. And the Doctor's like, "Oh, I recognize this. This is a void ship. Inside it is the void." The void is apparently space between time and between space where there is just nothingness. According to Torchwood, the orb came through and then the ghosts followed. They go to show the Doctor the ghost shift and he stops it. The Doctor breaks out of the TARDIS and goes to the orb room to ponder the orb. But she gets caught. Despite the Doctor trying to stop the ghost shift, remember those two people who went up to have the snog? Them and their cyber headsets continue the ghost shift, put it on full blast. And who comes through? This Cyberman. And at this point, the orb just so happens to activate, and it turns out one of the guards in the room is Mickey Smith. He was gone for like 2 episodes. Again, how are they back? Mickey Smith is here, the Cybermen are here, and who comes out of the orb? The Daleks. This is the first Dalek-Cybermen crossover episode in Modern Who. This blows my mind. This is insane, revolutionary. The Doctor's 2 biggest enemies in one place in Torchwood. Cut to the final episode. We have now been presented with the Daleks, the Cybermen, Mickey Smith, and the rest of the gang of hooligans, including Tyler. We find out that the reason they can travel through this rift is that, well, first this void ship basically broke a hole through time and space between the parallel universe and this universe, and so using that rift, the Cybermen were able to get through, but also the band of hooligans were able to utilize it to travel through dimensions. But every time they use them, it tears a further rift in space and time, which, spoiler alert, is not a good thing. But I do have to say that the Cybermen are kind of woke, and I quote, "The Cybermen will remove fear and race and class and sex and colour and creed." And it's also around about now that we get my favourite moment in all of Doctor Who. Identify. No, you identify. How many of you are there? 3. You would kill the entirety of Cybermen with 3 Daleks. We would kill the entirety of Cybermen with 1 Dalek. We are superior to you in every way. You are superior to us in only one thing: dying. The script writers for these past 2 seasons, Russell T Davies, you've given us, you want a command, kill yourself, and this entire speech. What more can we ask? Turns out that the Daleks need Rose Tyler's handprint, or generally just human touch, to unlock this void ship properly. And it turns out that this void ship is actually Time Lord technology. It's a Time Lord prison for Daleks. There are millions of Daleks stored in this thing, and on their way out, who falls and touches it? Mickey Smith. Nicholas Smickolas. Now we have 1,000,000 goddamn Daleks overthrowing the whole world, and 1,000,000 goddamn Cybermen overthrowing the whole world. Everyone who's been through the space-time rift is covered in time energy. The Doctor figures out how he can close the breach. If they open the breach for long enough, everything that is covered in this time matter will get sucked in. And so to this point where the Doctor is like, okay, Pete, who is now at this point met and reunited with this Earth's Jackie, Doctor says to all of them that they have to go back to the parallel world, otherwise they will get sucked into the void. And Rose is like, nah, I am not going. I am staying here with you. And she's like, you're not getting rid of me. And the Doctor's like, I guess I'm not. So they fully open this void, and every single Cyberman and Dalek does like a woo 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 woo. They fly around like a game lagging out. It's incredible. And Rose Tyler is holding on to this switch for dear life. She slips and she's about to fall into the void. And the Doctor is screaming, Rose, no, hold on. And just as she can't hold on any longer, Tyler teleports back, picks her up, teleports her back to the parallel world, and the void closes. Any travel between these parallel worlds is now impossible. They're stranded like that. And we get the best goddamn scene in this whole goddamn show. And the Doctor and Rose both place their hand and their head on two sides of a wall of the different Torchwood Institutes from different parallel universes. And Rose sobs, and the Doctor looks out stoically, and oh my god, is it dramatic! And Your Honor, I love Rose Tyler! Rose in this parallel world starts getting dreams, and these dreams lead her to something called Bad Wolf Bay. The Doctor literally burns up a star, the power to astral project basically, for a couple of minutes to say goodbye to Rose. He tells her to move on, to have a life. She tells the Doctor that she loves him, and the Doctor looks at her, tears in his eyes, and says, well, if it's my last chance to say it, I guess, Rose Tyler. And then he cuts out, when I say, I'm about to throw hands. And he just stands in that TARDIS until he turns around and there is a whole ass woman in a wedding dress there. Cue the Christmas special of season 3. This is episode 1 of series 4. Rose Tyler is currently out of the picture. Doctor is in the TARDIS with a random girl in her wedding dress. We are introduced to Donna Noble. Now, I'm going to put her in the blue section, but Source just trusts me on this, okay? We find out that Donna Noble is getting married. She has like an secretary job. Why was she transported to the TARDIS? Turns out her fiance / almost husband has been feeding her particles every day via coffee, which means she is the perfect food for a spider lady. The spider lady is called the Rachnos. She's the last of her kind. Her spaceship is at the center of the Earth. The Earth formed around the Arachnid spaceship. The Rachnos wants to explode the Earth. We also find out that the Doctor killed the Time Lords killed all the Rachnos back in the day. Her husband / fiance gets eaten by the Rachnos. They obviously break up. He was using her the whole time. The Doctor invites Donna back to the TARDIS because he's currently lonely. And she's like, no, thank you. It's a bit too much for me. Main takeaway, we meet Donna Noble. And she has no recollection of any of the events that have happened in the past 2 seasons. Episode 2, we are introduced to a few very important characters. Martha Jones is the second companion of the Doctor and was done tremendously dirty by this show. We learn is in training to become a doctor, like a real doctor, and she works at a local hospital. We are also introduced in this time to her sister, Tish Jones. She works a variety of secretary jobs, and we are also introduced to Mama Jones, who, listen, I'm a bit of an auntie, she's a little bit annoying, but alas, she plays a little bit of an important role, so she will also be going up on the wall. Martha goes to work this morning to her practice job at a local hospital. Who's one of the patients she is treating? Why, Mr. David Tennant. And suddenly, Martha gets a phone call. But there's like a storm over the hospital, and she's like, yeah, that's fine. No, Martha. The storm is raining upwards. We are literally on the moon. We're on the moon. Just like that. The whole hospital is now on the moon. Everyone's freaking out. And the Doctor and Martha end up finding each other. What else do we see but a spaceship also on the moon and a collection of rhino-based aliens? These aliens are called Judoon and are basically glorified space police. The Judoon are pretty much here to find an intergalactic space criminal. Turns out this intergalactic space criminal keeps drinking people's blood via straws in order to hide from the DNA blood scanner that the Judoon have. The solution to this problem is that the Doctor pretends to be solely a human, gets the alien to drink his blood. When the Judoon come looking for her, they're like, you're actually an alien, not a human. Come with us. We won't explode the moon now, and we'll just leave. Literally victory. By this point, Martha has learned that the Doctor is in fact an alien and is in fact a Time Lord. The Judoon leave politely and calmly and restore the moon to its natural place. He asks Martha, and Martha says one trip and that's it, because she's addicted to that grind. She has a degree to come and get. She does not have time for time and space. Episode 3 is pretty skippable. We go back in time, we meet Shakespeare. Martha and Shakespeare P have a bit of a fling going on. There are witches involved. Episode 4, however, listen, it's not the best Doctor Who episode, but it is my favourite of all time. It's called Gridlock. I don't know why. It's not like revolutionary. It's not like mind-boggling or like career-changing. But when I watched this as like an 11-year-old, this shit blew my mind. I was like, the real villain is ourselves? May I present New York. We're back, baby. We're back. Except this time we land in the slums. And the slums are pretty empty. Where is everyone? There's a couple of vendors going around and they're selling moods. Start selling happy, start selling forget. And a woman comes up to one of these vendors and says, "Can I please have a patch of forget?" Turns out she wants to forget her family because they went to something called the motorway. They've been gone for multiple years and no one ever comes back. A flash forward like 30 seconds, Martha gets kidnapped by like a lovely young couple. They apologize profusely so that they have 3 people in their car to enter the motorway. We learn about this motorway and turns out it is the motorway from where we are now, the slums, to New York. And the reason they need 3 people is to enter something called the fast lane to try and get there quicker. You can only enter the fast lane if you have 3 adults in your car. We learned that apparently this fast lane takes 6 years to get to Brooklyn. The Doctor ends up running down to the freeway and hijacking a random van's vehicle. We learn from them that it's taken them 12 years to travel 5 miles on this freeway. They manage to find out what car Martha is in. Cut to Martha and the lovely couple. They are getting violently attacked in the fast lane. The fast lane is the lane closest to the bottom, and obviously this place is crazy polluted, so you can't see outside because of all the gas emissions. There are pretty much beasts below the fast lane. Just as the Doctor's about to get there, who rocks up? One of the cats from the Sisterhood, of course. She's here, and she tells the Doctor, "We need to go." And the Doctor's like, "Nuh-uh, my friend is down there." And she's like, "Yaha," and teleports him away. Literally teleports behind you and then teleports away. And she explains to the Doctor that everyone down in the freeway, in the motorway, is gridlocked. Will never get out. There is no exit. They go around in a circle again and again and again. 24 years ago, New York died. One of those moods they were selling, called Bliss, it mutated into an airborne disease and killed the entire population in 10 minutes flat. There is not enough power in the city left to open the motorway and let people out. And the world has been put on quarantine for at least 100 years. And then, who do we see? Testicle hair. The face of Bo. The face of Bo never left. He's still here and he is dying. It turns out the face of Bo used the last of his power to close the motorway. But like usual, the Doctor does not take no for an answer. And so, using the power in his sonic screwdriver, he opens up the gates. And the gridlock is solved. This is the dying breath of the face of Bo. He ends up collecting Martha and bringing her back. As previously prophesied, in his final moments, he will whisper to a traveller his last secret. And he looks at the Doctor and he says, "You are not alone." Eventually, the Doctor and Martha intend to head home, but Martha puts her foot down and says she is not going with him, because at the moment she feels quite sidelined. The Doctor sits down and he explains what Gallifrey was like. In episodes 5 and 6, the Daleks take over Manhattan. We're back. These next 2 episodes take place in 1920s Flappers, New York. The Empire State Building isn't even finished yet. You know who's in this episode? Andrew Garfield. The company that is behind making the Empire State Building is taking people from Hooverville during the Great Depression. So Hooverville was a camp of people who had lost their homes and their jobs. So they're paying people from Hooverville, bare bones, to build the Empire State Building. Turns out, Who is building the Empire State Building? It is the Daleks. They want to nail some Dalekanium. What the fuck is a Dalekanium? Some Dalekanium to the top of the Empire State Building. Turns out they are kidnapping people and taking the intellectual ones to turn into Daleks, and the stupid ones to turn into pig slaves. Now, the Dr. Martha and Andrew Garfield are sent down into the sewers to investigate these pig slaves. The Doctor ends up finding out that it's the Daleks, and he's like, what the fuck? How did they get here? I literally threw them all into the void. Literally, the Daleks are like William Afton. They always come back. They get taken up, or down rather, to where the Daleks are keeping base. And we meet Dalek Sec, who is a little bit Dalek sexy. He is like a sleek black Dalek, and objectively the leader of the Daleks in a sense. It's called the Council of Skaro, I believe, and it's like the last 4 remaining Daleks. And it turns out, in order to promote the Dalek race, their last remaining idea is to make a Dalek-human hybrid. However, we get a first look POV of this experience as Dalek Sec turns himself into Dalek Dubious. We meet the world's first human Dalek. Dalek Sec, I'm going to be so real with you, looks kinda nasty. He looks like you would find him in the most dubious webcomic of all time. Why does his head look like that? Turns out, it's more human than Dalek. He's an empath. He feels human emotions. The Daleks are putting the Dalekanium on the Empire State Building in order to power the machine that will turn the army of humans into an army of human Daleks. The Doctor then climbs the Empire State Building to try and unscrew the Dalekanium, gets struck by lightning, manages to survive. However, the entire Dalek army now comes to life, and their only hope is that since the lightning strike went through the Doctor before it went through the Daleks and the humans, is that there is a possibility that could save them. The Council of Skaro are starting to doubt Dalek Sec over here, and not just because he looks like a walking anime fantasy. In the end, there is a giant battle between the Dalek human army, the Daleks, and like the Doctor. The Daleks walk on stage with Dalek Sec in the middle, kneeling down, tentacles out. The Daleks look down at Dalek Sec and say, "You told us to imagine the future, but we can only imagine your irrelevance." If someone said that to me, I would literally have to end it all. The Council of Skaro end up killing Dalek Sec. The human Dalek army is part Time Lord as well as part everything else. They themselves start to question their morals. And so the Daleks, what do? They kill every single human Dalek. The Doctor ends up having a one-to-one with one of the Daleks called Dalek Khan. And in the end, I'm so serious, the solution to this problem is that the Dalek Khan runs away because he's scared. And we land back on Earth, again, generally modern day, and we find out that Tish over here has a new job working for a man called Lazarus. The Doctor Who Fortnite chart, Dr. Lazarus is actually Mycroft from Sherlock. Turns out that Lazarus has an anti-aging device. The Doctor tries to drop Martha off home and leave, but as usual, there is a mystery on our hands. We can never have something so simple. And so the Doctor and Martha go to Lazarus's big fancy gala to watch him de-age himself. He enters the aging chamber, and it almost explodes. It almost goes wrong until the Doctor and Martha show it off, save his life. But turns out he does de-age. He actually awakened a secret part of the human DNA, an alternative evolutionary option that was thrown out of the door thousands of years ago. Meaning, he becomes a giant bug. There is an alternate human timeline where we all became giant bugs. Long story short, Martha, the Doctor, and Tish, Martha's mum also meets the Doctor, and she is not a fan, I can tell you that right now. But Martha, the Doctor, and Tish all end up chasing Dr. Lazarus to a large cathedral. This show gets insane, more insane in every single episode I explain, I'm so sorry. The Doctor plugs Sonic Screwdriver into a giant organ, plays it really loud, and just before Dr. Lazarus in bug form is about to eat Martha and Tish, the sonic waves enter his brain and he falls onto the ground and dies. In the end, Martha puts her foot down and she tells the doctor that she's going to keep traveling with him. She says something along the lines of, "You can't show me this giant world and expect me to keep living normally." They start traveling together officially. The doctor gives her a TARDIS key. Episode 8, we don't get a lot of crazy lore in this one. The Doctor and Martha land on a spaceship that just happens to be flying into the sun. Just another casual day. They have 12 minutes before they fly into the sun. The ship is being possessed by basically an alien solar soul, because they stole a bit of technology from something near the sun, because they're a scavenger ship, didn't check for any signs of life, took it. This thing is pissed off that it was taken from its home planet, so it decides to throw the ship into the sun. Episodes 9 and 10, however, banger episodes. We learn that the Doctor and Martha are being chased by some random alien. Next thing we know, the Doctor wakes up in like 1913. He wakes up from a dream where he is this character called the Doctor, and he's traveling with Martha Jones and they're being chased by a random alien. And he wakes up and Martha comes in a maid outfit to deliver him his breakfast. She calls him Mr. Smith. Turns out this is Mr. Smith, a full-blown human. And Martha Jones is his housemaid, and he works in an all-boys school in 1913. The Doctor explains that, Mr. Smith explains that he had a dream last night that he was this time-traveling alien, but Martha knows something. Martha knows something is up. We are introduced to the character of Nurse Redford, Jane Redford, or also known as Matron. Her and Mr. Smith, crazy flirty vibes. Like, as in, will romance each other flirty vibes. She gets to go on the wall. In the green section, the Doctor shows Matron Redford this diary that he's been keeping, which has all his dreams in it. And we flick through and we see drawings and stories of the adventures we've had so far. Drawings of Rose and the Cybermen and the Daleks and the TARDIS. And she says that he has a very explorative mind. Also, you know who's in this episode? Thomas Brodie Sangster, like Newt from The Maze Runner. We also introduced to one of these school children. His name is Baines. He sees a spaceship crash into the forest. And like any teenager would, he goes to investigate. But he does get eaten by the spaceship. He turns into an alien. Well, more so he gets possessed by an alien, so he still looks the same. But we know something sussy is wrong. And you know how we know something sussy is up? Because Baines has the most devious little smile known to man. He is a devious little guy. Look at this, bro. Look at that little smile. You know that guy from Star Kid, and he always has that goofy little side smile going? This is what he looks like. This man pulls the most insane facial expressions of all time. Now, once Martha catches hold of the fact that Mr. Jones and Matron Redford are like flirty vibes, and when I say flirty vibes, I mean like, they kiss it. Like, I'm totally there for it. Martha goes to the TARDIS, and this is when we learn a bit more. We learn here that Martha Jones is the real Martha Jones, and that Mr. Smith is technically the real Doctor. But they were being chased by something called the Family of Blood, and they got a hold of the Doctor's DNA, or his Time Lord DNA sequence, and they need it to try and bring back their whole race, keep the family going. They're the last of their kind, like usual. In order to escape them, in order to run away, the Doctor had to put his entire Time Lord essence, his entire existence, into a Gallifreyan pocket watch that he keeps on him. And he is running and hiding from this Family of Blood. Now, I believe the family have a very limited lifespan, and so after 2 or so months they should die. But until then, Martha has to cosplay a housemaid in the 1920s, and the Doctor is Mr. Jones. Mr. Jones has no recollection of ever being the Doctor. He doesn't know. As far as he is aware, he is just a regular-ass normal human living a regular-ass normal human life. Martha knows that if something goes wrong, she is to open the fog watch, and the Doctor's presence and essence will flow back into Mr. Smith. Thomas Brodie Sangster, the little shit, he gets a hold of this fog watch. And so by the time that Martha learns and figures out that there are aliens and tries to open the watch is gone, and Mr. Smith and Matron think she's fucking crazy. The Doctor and Matron end up going to a fancy ball together because, just a reminder, they are in love. And while she's here, the Family of Blood invade. They have an army of like scarecrow men because they can smell the Time Lord energy, and they think it's Mr. Smith because Thomas Brodie Sangster opens the Time Lord watch to look into it, and he hears whispers, and he hears the voices. Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. The family of blood hold the matron and Martha at gunpoint and say, reveal yourself, Time Lord, or we die. And Mr. Smith is like, dude, what are you on about? Martha eventually tells matron the whole truth, like all of it, about the watch, about the doctor, about the Time Lord, and all of that, about the aliens. Whether the matron fully believes her or not is a bit of a dubious topic, but she gets the general gist. They also find out that Thomas Brody Sangster has the fog watch, and Martha takes it from him. Mr. Smith also at this point sees the TARDIS and realizes that he wrote about it, that it's real, and he starts to accept the truth that Martha's telling him. Martha has to convince the doctor to open the watch. Now we have this whole moral dilemma where Mr. Smith doesn't want to die. He has found someone that he loves. He's found a life that he's happy with. Why should he give that up? I think at one point he asked Martha, and it's like, what about love? Did the doctor never consider falling in love? Eventually, we cut over to the spaceship with the family of blood. We don't know if the doctor or Mr. Smith has opened the watch or not. We've got no clue. Rocks up, and it's Mr. Smith. He talks to them, and he's like, please just, we'll surrender. He falls on a bunch of buttons, and he hands over the fog watch. They open the watch. There's nothing in it. Bada bing, bada boom, it was actually the doctor. He opened the watch. We win these boys. We take the fattest W's ever. Because of the loss that he has suffered, he kills them all mercilessly. The doctor is not a killer at heart, but sometimes he can be swayed. He, actually, tortures these people. I could fix John Smith. I could not fix the doctor. And in the end, the doctor goes to see the matron, and he offers for her to travel with them. And he says, we could try this again. We could try falling in love again. And she says no. She says that you are not my John Smith. There is an episode of Doctor Who that you would have seen, or that you would know about, or you would hear about. It is by far Blink. There's no way it's not Blink. Whilst not being crazy important to the overall plot, is arguably one of the most influential episodes and terrifying episodes of Doctor Who ever written. We open not with the Doctor and Martha, but with a lovely lady called Sally Sparrow, and she is going to investigate this abandoned building, and she ends up tearing some wallpaper off of the wall, and it says her name. That obviously freaks her out, and she runs. She goes to contact her best friend of last name Nightingale, and they go back to this haunted house to try and figure out what the hell happened. They part ways, and then there's a knocking at the door. And a man is looking for Sally Sparrow. She says, I have a note. This note is from that very friend that she just seen seconds ago. And that we see her get transported back in time to the 1920s. This man is her great-grandson, and he is here to deliver a note to Sally Sparrow at the time that she disappeared, letting her know what happened. She ends up going to the shop of her friend's brother, and he is talking about Easter eggs on these DVDs. And we see on the TV the doctor sitting and talking. He appears to be answering questions. Sally, a little bit more confused, ends up going to the police. And the police shows her a room full of cars, all of which were found at this house that she was investigating. This police officer also gets zapped into the past. She then manages to go and find him dying in his hospital bed. He's 60 years older, but 10 minutes have passed for her. We see a flashback of him meeting the Doctor and Martha in the 60s, I believe. They explain that there are these things called weeping angels. Weeping angels are pretty much just statues, except they can only move when you are not looking at them. And they kill you nicely. They take the energy from you, all the time that you have left to live, and send you back in time, that exact period. So you end up dying a natural death, but at the very time you were zapped. In the end, Sally and Nightingale's brother go to this abandoned house once more with the DVDs. That the DVD Easter egg is filmed by the Doctor in the past to have a discussion with Sally in the present. The brother starts writing all this down, so it turns out that the Doctor has a transcript from the future that he took into the past, so he knows how to answer the questions that Sally's going to ask, so that Sally gets the answers for now. They find out that this house is full of weeping angels. The entire concept is do not blink. The Doctor tells them to go downstairs, and they find the TARDIS. Sally and the random man end up going down to the basement, chased by the angels. They find the TARDIS. Now, Sally was given a TARDIS key by the police officer from earlier. Enter the TARDIS, and the TARDIS starts dematerializing around them. When it goes, the angels are standing in a circle, staring at each other, stuck in a perpetual state of looking at one another, but not being able to look away because they can't move if something's looking at them. They're literally stuck there like that forever. It's genius. Now, the season finale of this season of Doctor Who, I would argue, is a 3-episode special. The Doctor and Martha land very briefly back in Cardiff to recharge. The Doctor has to recharge the TARDIS at the Cardiff Space Time Ring. And who do we see running towards the TARDIS? Captain Jack Harkness. He should have died 2 seasons ago. He runs towards the TARDIS and manages to grab onto the outside right as the TARDIS is dematerializing, which sends the TARDIS to somehow the end of the known universe. This should be a place where it is not possible for the TARDIS to go. Doctor is absolutely flabbergasted, bro. Don't even joke, lad. They open the door and they find Jack. And the Doctor doesn't seem surprised to see Jack alive. And what they find is a group of human survivors who live in basically a refugee camp of sorts. And we're introduced to a character called the Professor. And Jack, so he has basically a time machine on his wrist. And he explains that he tried to find the Doctor, but was sent back 100 years in the past, and the thing broke, and so he had to live through 100 years. And this asks the question of how the fuck can he do that and still look like a 25-year-old? The Professor explains something called the Utopia Project. He is in charge of looking for a destined utopia, this place to save the last of humanity from the end of the universe. We are also shown that Captain Jack has the Doctor's cut-off hand from the Christmas special of season 2. Turns out that's what he used to track the Doctor for the Cardiff Space Time Rift. And the Doctor says that this ship that they built, it can't fly. The Doctor, using his old magical power and inspired by saving humanity, manages to get the ship to power on. Except, what's this? The Professor runs into the TARDIS. When he looks at it, this drumming comes back to his head. Jack is literally immortal. Captain Jack is actually, immortal. He rose into the heart of the TARDIS. That whole situation, basically Time Lord energy was passed into Jack, so he is basically immortal. He can never die. Now, as this spaceship takes off, the drums in the Professor's head get louder and louder, and he has a realization. He puts his hand in his pocket, and what does he pull out? A Gallifreyan Time Lord pocket watch, and he opens it. Then when the face of Bo said to the Doctor, "You are not alone," this Professor is a character we now know as the Master. The Master goes in the wall. The Master is arguably the most important Doctor Who character. The Master is the only other remaining Time Lord alive. Him and the Doctor grew up on Gallifrey together. They both went to something called the Time Academy together. They were childhood best friends, and for the past couple of 100 years since Gallifrey died, have been constant lifelong rivals. And as soon as the Doctor realizes that this is the Master goes and he steals the TARDIS. And the Doctor runs and he begs to get let in. But the Master was shot on his way here, so he has to regenerate. And that's when he becomes this version of the Master. And listen, okay, the Master, he's a little bit silly Billy. And let me tell you, these two have the most old man Yowie relationship I've ever seen in my whole life. They have this weird accumulation of romantic and platonic, and it's like this weird timeless love where it's so all-encompassing that it transcends any form of definition. The Doctor, Martha, and Jack landing back on essentially modern-day Earth. Maybe a couple of months have passed. Turns out they were managed to rejig Jack's time watch and landed back on Earth. Also turns out that before the Master left, the Doctor was able to basically break the TARDIS in a way so it could only travel between the last place it landed, Earth, and where it left, the end of the world. Two very limited options. The Master became Harold Saxon. Harold Saxon is also the Prime Minister of the UK. Remember how I said that I had 2 nickels for every time aliens have become the Prime Minister of the UK? Yeah, this is the second nickel. Harold Saxon also has a wife, Mrs. Saxon. Now, we learn that Mrs. Saxon is fully aware that Harold, or the Master, is like an alien. She knows, she's aware that he has a plan to overthrow the whole world. That Harold Saxon came to power just after Harriet Jones fell from power. Harold Saxon launched something called the Archangel Network. He had a bunch of satellites. It's like your 5G, it's your Telstra, it's your NBN, and it's worldwide. And this is how he, through like a subwave network, he was able to convince the whole world to vote for Saxon and he is now the Prime Minister. He also now has Tish on his team. She works for him. He has a master plan to introduce these little orbs called the Toclophane. He pitches this as the Earth's first real allyship with an alien life form. And he plans to bring these little metal orbs to Earth. That the Toclophane are actually under his command, and he is their master, is trying to bring them to Earth so they can kill everyone. The master doesn't know what happened to Gallifrey. The reason he's so fucked in the head, and the reason he has this constant drumbeat going on, when he was a young boy, his father took him into the city to ponder the orb. He was taken into Gallifrey to look into the tempered schism. Now, this man can temper my schism all he wants, but the tempered schism was kind of like, he looked into all of time and space, and it drove him mad. The Time Lords themselves created this beast. Jack also reveals to the Doctor that he is the new leader of Torchwood. The Doctor is not happy about this, because last time he heard of Torchwood, they did kind of kill his friend, and were also like institutionalized, trying to control aliens, which he does not fuck with. But we learn here that Torchwood is actually a group of about 3 people now, including Jack, try to save the world from aliens when the Doctor is not here. The Doctor gives Jack and Martha something called a low-level perception filter, allows them to go unnoticed. They end up getting teleported to the ship that the Master is on, which is basically a glorified helicarrier from the Avengers. The Master turns the TARDIS into a paradox machine. The Doctor tries to basically overthrow the Master while he's on live television. And remember Mr. Lazarus? Saxon was funding his research, and so Harold Saxon, the Master, has the anti-aging technology, but therefore the aging technology, and literally ages the Doctor like 1,000 years. He looks so insanely cursed. It's insane. The Master does do a silly dance, felt important to note, and the episode ends out as the Toclophane rain down on the world, starting to kill thousands of the world's population, and Martha Jones teleports away. We see Martha Jones running across the whole world, the Master's face carved into everything, find a way to kill the Master, or kill Time Lords. She finds a weapon that has 4 different components. Now, we see back on the Master's ship that he has basically enslaved Martha's whole family. Also keeps the Doctor in a wheelchair and wheels him around. They play chasey. We find out the Master is trying to strike war on literally the whole universe. The Master figures out that Martha is trying to put together this weapon to kill the Master. And so on live television, broadcasted to Martha, he makes already old Doctor into literally this big stick figure Dobby's head. Literally, it's insane. And he starts keeping him in a cage. The Doctor literally gets caged, bro. The Master eventually finds Martha, asks her to hand over the gun, which she does willingly, and then takes her back to the helicarrier. Martha also is able to capture and open a sphere, and she finds out that the Toclophane are actually the people from Utopia. If the Toclophane are the end, what's left of the human race, and they're killing the human race, surely that means they're just killing themselves. The paradox machine. The TARDIS' power is strong enough to withhold the paradox so that both can coexist. The Master has something called Launch Day, in which is when he plans to launch missiles to, again, overtake the universe. The countdown begins, and Martha's a bit cocky. She's like, bet. And he's like, well, I just read the gun. And Martha is like, you think a gun? I traveled a year walking the planet to find a gun? Turns out what she did was she walked the planet to basically tell everyone to think about the Doctor. At a certain day, on a certain time, the Doctor's had a year to channel himself into the subwave network. And that power, some way or another, literally transforms him, and he T-pose magical girl transformations back into the Doctor. Literally, these episodes are cooked, but in the strangest way possible. He literally T-poses, flies over to the Master, who is crying, and he hugs him and says, I forgive you. And at this point, the battle's been won. Jack ends up managing to get to the TARDIS, breaks the paradox machine, the Toclophane are dead, we've won. And the Doctor literally says something along the lines of, maybe finally after all this time, I have someone to care for. He's going to take the master with him through time and space to rehabilitate him, and they can live a happy, long, loving life together. And then Martha's mum tries to shoot him, and the doctor talks her down from the edge. But then the master's wife shoots him instead, and he dies in the doctor's arms, and the doctor literally sobs, "I'm begging you, regenerate," and the master dies in the doctor's arms and has a whole traditional Gallifreyan funeral. We burn him. The doctor asks Martha to keep traveling with him, and Martha says no. She says that she has her family, I have to look after them now. And then she also says that I've been in love with you for the past few months and that you've never looked at me twice, and that she deserves better. Good for her. We also find out Captain Jack grows to become the face of Bo, which then explains how he knows about the mask. The doctor walks into his TARDIS, and then he crashes into the fucking Titanic. Season 4 of Doctor Who. The Doctor crashes into the Titanic. This episode is a Christmas special. Kylie Minogue is in this episode. Fun Kylie Minogue based fact. As an Australian who has Welsh in my blood, this is the episode for me. Kylie Minogue was in this episode. Because of her, this was the most streamed episode of Doctor Who ever. But nothing crazy happens in the Christmas special. Some Titanic-based shenanigans. The Titanic almost falls into Buckingham Palace. Episode 1 of the season, however. Episode 2, technically. Remember Donna? Remember Donna Noble from last year's Christmas special? Well, she is back, baby. And better than ever. Turns out, since she last saw the Doctor, she has been going on an adventure to try and solve mysteries herself, in vague hopes of coming in contact with the Doctor again. She is investigating Adipose Industries, and so is the Doctor. Adipose Industries is an industry that is selling weight loss pills, diet pills, and they work surprisingly well. All of the fat that you lose on these pills turn into silly little guys. The fat turns into literally a blorbo, a grumbly. We meet the adipose. This is what your fat turns into. I want one of these. It's a pet. And after finding out that they turn into little walking fat monsters, the Doctor and Donna are both watching in on a business meeting with the nanny of Adipose Industries. And they look across the room, and what do they see? Each other through the windows. And then eventually the CEO notices, and there's like a giant chase down through Adipose Industries. We learn that the CEO of Adipose Industries has been sent down by her mother race to basically nanny a bunch of small adipose. However, turns out that's also a crime against the Shadow Proclamation. Eventually the mothership comes down, takes all the little fat adipose, and leaves her there to die. We are also introduced to a character, my favorite character, and the last character to go in the blue circle, Wilfred. Wilfred, the love of my life. May he rest easy. The actor for Wilfred died about a year and a half or so ago. Wilfred is Donna's grandfather. This time, the Doctor does not ask Donna if she wants to come on an adventure with him. Donna tells him that they will be adventuring together. And before this episode closes out, we see Rose Tyler. Episode 3 takes place in ancient Rome. How often do you think of ancient Rome? Follow-up question. You know what Pompeii is, right? I was talking to my roommate about this the other day, and she had no fucking clue what Pompeii was. Our goal here is to stop Mount Vesuvius from erupting. And Donna is like, well, we're here. We know what's going to happen. We can tell them to evacuate. We can stop the volcano from erupting. And the Doctor is like, we can't do that. This is a set point in time. Fun fact about this episode, not only is Peter Capaldi in it, who will become the 12th Doctor, but also Helen Gillian is also in it, who becomes Amy Pond. Turns out there is a giant stone demon who lives below Mount Vesuvius. There is a group of prophets who are breathing in his stone dust that basically can tell the future. They can't see the fact that Pompeii is happening. Demons are going to use the explosion of Pompeii to launch a spaceship off planet. But if they don't launch off planet, then they kill everyone. In order to try and stop Pompeii from exploding, the Doctor ends up making Pompeii explode. Episode 4, we once again meet the Ood. Where are they? Up there. We learn that the Ood came from a different planet, voyaged across all of space, and came to Earth, specifically to serve humanity. We land at the Ood production facility where they breed, grow, and sell Ood as basically glorified Alexas. And Donna obviously is like, this is literally slavery. You can't fucking do this. And the Doctor's like, yeah. Turns out there's a disease going around the ood population called red eye, in which their eyes actually become red. Turns out that the company here that are producing and selling the ood bottomize them. Remember the orbs that the ood hold in their hand? Turns out they are literally born with their brain in their hand. That's their free will, their consciousness. And this company cuts their brain out and puts a translator in there instead. And they basically keep a massive ood brain that acts as a hive mind so that the ood don't have any free will. This episode contains the nastiest thing I think I've seen in Doctor Who, in which the ood feed the CEO like ood juice and he becomes an ood. He grows into an ood, which implies that the ood are derivative of humanity in some way. The Doctor and Donna end up liberating the ood here, and we are also then introduced to almost like a monk race of ood, which are somewhat like all-seeing and powerful, and they generally can tell the future. The next is a 2-episode special introduced to a race called the Soltarans, and this episode pretty much follows the Soltarans as they try to use the Earth as a Soltaran breeding ground. The Soltarans are a race of bred warrior clones. I fucked up my circles a bit. We're just gonna have to take the L. We find out that Martha Jones currently works for UNIT. Martha and Donna meet each other, and they actually get along pretty alright because they realize they're not competition. And we find out that Martha Jones is also engaged to a man. The Soltarans end up poisoning the world with toxic gas. Wilfred almost dies in a car accident, and eventually the Doctor lights the atmosphere on fire, just like Oppenheimer. If you think about it, the Doctor's kind of Oppenheimer coded and blows up the Soltaran ship. Eventually, Doctor, Martha, and Donna all end up on the TARDIS, and Martha intends to leave and go home, but the TARDIS takes off uncontrollably. Unexplainably, it just takes off. Trio land on a random planet, and as they land and get out, a tissue sample is taken and put into a cloning machine, and literally the Doctor is cloned. I would like you guys to meet Jenny. Jenny is piloted as the Doctor's daughter. Technically, a clone taken from the Doctor's DNA. This is where we're going to start taking the first L. The first L is I'm going to put Jenny in the monster collection, even though technically she's not, but you're just going to have to live with it. I don't know where I fucked up, but I did somewhere. The actor who plays Jenny, Georgia, is actually married to David Tennant. And it turns out Jenny is made, or well, cloned, because they are currently fighting, because there is a war that has lasted generations between humans and a race of fish people called the Hath. Martha gets kidnapped by the Hath, and they basically fight this whole episode trying to reunite Martha and the Doctor. The Doctor has a whole thing about how Jenny cannot technically be a Time Lord because, and I quote, being a Time Lord is a shared suffering. Donna over here actually pops off this episode. She figures out the solution to the problem. Both sides are fighting towards getting to basically the secret covenant. It's called the Source. It is supposed to be this divine thing that will fix the war. This is a generational war, but it's only lasted 7 days. Because in those 7 days, they've been able to clone thousands of generations. Turns out, we find the Source, and the Source actually proves that the Hath and the humans came here as a united force, intended initially to make barren planets inhabitable. Their goal is to actually repopulate this world, but unfortunately, a dispute broke out between the two leaders, and a war broke out. The leader of the humans is not pleased about this, and so, in retaliation, he shoots Jenny. As soon as the Doctor was coming around to having maybe a daughter or another Time Lord, in this episode he also implies that he's had kids before back on Gallifrey, and turns out Jenny has 2 hearts but cannot regenerate, and he flies off to drop Martha home. Spoiler alert, Jenny actually didn't die and did come back to life. We do, however, never see her again. In episode 8, we meet Agatha Christie. There is a bee-related problem where there is a bee-related murder. Agatha Christie ends up writing a novel about a bee and dedicates it to Donna Noble. Now we can finally get to my favourite 2 Doctor Who episodes, apart from Gridlock, Silence in the Library. The Doctor and Donna land on a planet, and the planet is literally just a library. It has every book ever written in a digital form in this library, and it's abandoned. It's empty. Where is everyone? Knock, knock, knock. Who's that? A group of spacemen archaeologists come a knocking. One of these spacemen archaeologists being River Song. Now, River Song is sexy. I'm so serious. I would wipe her up if I could. River Song is an archaeologist. Not only that, a time-traveling archaeologist. Once again, I may have fucked up with the circles, so I'm going to have to put her in the villain circle, but still in the green section, and she actually becomes a very important character in later seasons. River acts like she knows the Doctor, but the Doctor has no clue who River is. We find out that the Doctor is someone from River's past, but River is someone from the Doctor's future. They're two time travelers who are traveling in opposite directions to one another, and she has a diary that looks like a TARDIS, and she asks whereabouts they are, but he hasn't met her yet. She's got a sonic screwdriver. They obviously know each other. He's got no clue who she is. And you can see this obviously breaks River. She is a fantastic character. I love her so dearly. We are also introduced to the villain of these two episodes called the Vashnarada. The Vashnarada are the things that live in your shadows. Basically just turn you into a skeleton. Since all of our archaeologist friends are in spacesuits, it's like walking skeleton spacesuits. The Vashnarada. Again, fucked up my circles. Imagine this is in the monster circle, okay? But they are in fact evil. Donna gets killed by the Vashnarada. But she doesn't exactly die. She gets taken to what just looks like a suburban life. The Doctor, obviously incredibly pissed off that Donna Noble has been killed by the Vashnarada, tries to figure out what the fuck happened here. One of the archaeologists, his great-grandfather built this library because his daughter was sick. She was very, very sick, and the thing she loved most in the world was books. So he built her a library with every single book ever written, uploaded her into the mainframe. The mind of this library is this young girl. When the Vashnarada came here, in order to save the population of this library, she uploaded every single person currently in this library to her mind. And they find this girl plugged into the mainframe, and the Doctor strikes a deal with the Vashnarada. He realizes that the reason they're here is because their forest was chopped down, right? They lived in the trees. The trees became the books, and they are here to inflict wrath. The Doctor strikes a deal with them, saying that no more harm will come to them, but that they need to leave. They do, but in order to save everyone, to bring Donna back, they have to unplug this mainframe. Whoever sets this up, whoever plugs that in, will die. And the Doctor offers his life, and River Song says she cannot let him do this. Knocks him out, firstly, handcuffs him to a railing so she can do this without his interference. But she also whispers the Doctor's name in his ear in order to make him trust her. There is some Doctor Who lore, whereas the Doctor obviously is not his birth name. His birth name is a secret, and remains a secret. The fact that he told River Song his birth name implies that he trusts her more than anyone in the world. She plugs herself in to the mainframe to basically become this secondary. The Doctor realizes that there was probably a reason why he gave her the sonic screwdriver. And he realizes, in the final moments of River Song's life, he uploads her. But in the end, they get Donna back, and they go on their merry way. The next episode I'm also going to probably skip over because it's just another solo episode. But you do have to know that Merlin is in this episode. Like, the guy who plays Merlin. So we have King Uther. Gwyneth from Merlin is also in the Mary Antoinette episode. And now Merlin is in here, and we also had Gaius. So the whole Merlin cast is here, guys. The next episode is titled Turn Left. Pretty damn important to the season overall. Doctor and Donna land on a planet, non-disclosed where or when they are. But Donna goes in for a psychic reading. The lady in the psychic reading pretty much says to her, what if, like 2 years ago, you decided while driving to turn left instead of right? Where Donna goes for a new job. And instead of turning left to go to her new job, she turns right to go for a different interview. And that changes the entire progression of the rest of human history. That one choice that she makes. And this entire episode is in that parallel world in which she turns left. And in this world, the Doctor dies in the Christmas invasion, and there is no one to save the world from any of these aliens. At the end of this episode, Rose Tyler shows up, and she finds Donna, and she says, the stars are going out. Come to me when you're ready. Turns out that the thing feeding off of this universe in which she turns left, is a massive scarab beetle almost on her back. And Rose takes her to basically a unit base, and they show Donna this beetle on her back. And Rose says to Donna that you will die and this world will change, but you are the most important person in the universe. And they, time travel send Donna back in time to make herself turn right instead of left. In the end, I think she ends up doing it by, causing a car crash or something like that. Something crazy. Not only that Rose Tyler is back, but that she knows more that she's letting on. When Donna gets back to the regular time, wherever the Doctor and Donna were when she went for a soul reading, she tells the Doctor that a woman said the stars were going out and that she was blonde, and in the final moments, Rose told Donna to say the words bad wolf, and the Doctor knows. Instantly he knows that Rose Tyler is back, baby. The Doctor goes back into the TARDIS and everything is red. Episode 13 starts, they go back to Earth and are surprised to find that everyth's normal. Apparently, according to the Doctor, the walls of the universe are breaking down because Rose Tyler is here. Then, next minute, the TARDIS is they're just in space. The Earth is gone. Turns out, the TARDIS is in the same spot, but the entire Earth moved. It moved to a different solar system. The Doctor goes to the Shadow Proclamation and is like, we have a whole missing planet. And they're like, we've got multiple. And they find out that something is moving a bunch of planets from around the universe to make a new solar system. No wonder the stars were going out, because the entire Earth moved. We see flashes of different people we've met so far. We see Unit with Martha. We see Sarah Jane and her son with K9 and a computer called Mr. Smith. We see Torchwood. We see Wilfred and his daughter, Donna's mum. Anyway, turns out it's Daleks again. The Daleks invade Earth, instantly. But Rose Tyler is on Earth. Wilfred goes out with a paintball to shoot one of the Daleks. Luckily, Rose Tyler does have a Dalek-killing gun. She takes Wilfred and Donna's mother inside, and at this point, every single one of the Doctor's companions gets a phone call. Torchwood gets a phone call. Martha gets a phone call. Sarah Jane gets a phone call. And who else gets a phone call? Rose Tyler on Wilfred's laptop. And who's ringing them? Harriet Jones. Harriet Jones has hacked into the subwave network to go under the radar to ring all of the Doctor's companions to try and find out where the fuck the Doctor is. And all of them are on this video call apart from Rose, because Wilfred does not have a webcam or a microphone in his laptop. They all eventually agree that they have to boost the subwave network signal and try and call the Doctor at the same time to reach him. They should be able to reach him anywhere in the universe. However, in order to do this, they will have to come out of hiding. And Harriet Jones offers to sacrifice her life in order to get this signal out to the Doctor. She boosts the subwave network, and a swarm of Daleks comes into her house. Then they shoot her. But alas, everyone is calling the Doctor, including Rose. They manage to get in contact with the Doctor. All three of them. Rose, again, no webcam, is not on the call. And he's like, what's happened? Where are you? He managed to trace the call back to Earth and lands on Earth. And who's there? Where does he land? The exact place that Rose Tyler is. And they reunite, Your Honor. They literally reunite and they run towards each other. And it's so beautiful and dramatic. And then a Dalek appears and shoots the Doctor. And then Jack appears and shoots the Dalek, and it's tragic, dude. The Doctor is dying in Rose Tyler's arms. They take him into the TARDIS. He regenerates into himself. He uses a portion of his regenerative energy to bring himself back to life, but not change his face, and siphons the rest of the regeneration energy into the hand. Remember the fucking hand that Jack has? One way or another, everyone apart from Martha Jones ends up on the Dalek ship. But also because Rose is here, Jackie and Mickey are also here to try and save the day, to actually come after Rose. That the guy who is currently trying to take over the world of the Daleks is Davros. You may not know Davros, but Davros is the Dalek leader. He was a child born out of war. In order to stop people suffering during war, he created the Daleks, a species that was unable to suffer. He was locked away in the Time War. And the Doctor's like, how the fuck did you get out of the Time War? Remember Dalek Khan? He managed to fly back into the Time War, get Davros, and took him out. Dalek Khan did go insane because of it. It made him have Davros back. And Davros siphoned parts of himself to create a new Dalek race. And as a power play, the Daleks and Davros, with Donna still inside the TARDIS, throw it into the pit of the sun so it dies and burns. Don't fret though, we have the Doctor's hand. That has regeneration energy in it. That regeneration energy, mixed with Donna Noble, means that not only does she become part Time Lord, but we also get a secondary Doctor who is part human. Turns out the Daleks want to use the power of all of the planets they've moved into the solar system in order to create a device that literally destroys everything. The TARDIS mysteriously appears. Turns out, because we have the Doctor 2.0 and Dr. Donna, because she's now part Time Lord, they were able to fly the TARDIS out of the pit of the sun back onto the Dalek ship. The Doctor comes out with a gun, a Dalek gun, and Donna comes out and literally presses the off switch. She just turns them off. She just turns the Daleks off. And this is when we learn that she has the brain of a Time Lord. And because of the new Doctor and the Donna, we now have a two-way biological meta crisis. Dude, I'm gonna two-way your biology. She two-way up my biological to meta crisis. Because all the Daleks are turned off, they can just escape. And the Doctor offers Davros to come with him, and the Davros says no, he will die with his Daleks. And they literally, with the power of the TARDIS, move the Earth back into place. It doesn't even have a towing thing. Because of the whole two-way biological meta-crisis thing, the Doctor is able to go and drop Rose back off in her parallel world, and she's like, what the fuck, man? I came all the way to find you. And then he gives her two-way biological meta-crisis Doctor. The Doctor, in every single sense of the word, same memory, same body, same mind. Except he's only got one heart. He can live a normal life. He dies a normal life. He is gifting Rose a life together with the Doctor. Jackie stays here with this Pete in the parallel world, and Mickey goes back to regular Earth. And the Doctor and Donna are left in the TARDIS together. And Donna's like, let's travel together. There are two Doctors. We understand each other. The power in her brain, all of that knowledge will burn her from the inside out. She'll die. Her brain literally starts short-circuiting. And in order to keep Donna alive, the Doctor has to wipe her memory. And they can never see each other ever again. And he drops Donna back home with Wilfred. He says to Wilfred, I can never see her again. And I literally love Wilfred. This is technically the end of the season. But we do have 4 episodes after this that are the bridge between the 10th Doctor and the 11th Doctor that I will be going over. There are 3 episodes that are just Monster of the Week episodes in which we see the Doctor flying around by himself, solving issues and struggling, being on his own. The most important one will be the Waters of Mars, in which he goes to Mars and there is a plague breaking out on Mars. I'll show you the monster he'll be going up on the wall because he is iconic, and mainly because he scared the shit out of me as a kid. And this is also the final thing going on our orb. Holy shit, the orb is done. A viral disease in the waters of Mars. And there is a colony there that are trying to make Mars populable, and they end up having to leave. Time Lord situation where these people have to die. The Doctor refuses to let that happen. He has a power trip, and he is in this era where he's like, I am the last Time Lord left. The powers of space and time are mine to dictate. And he tries to save all these people and gets them off planet. And he does. He saves them for the most part, but he makes the mistake of telling them that they were supposed to die. And he takes them back to Earth, and the leader, the captain of this Mars ship, ends up killing herself when she gets home because of what needs to happen because she dies. She tells the Doctor that it is not his place to dictate times, and he sees an Ood. And he understands that seeing this Ood means that it's his time. He's being told that when there are 4 knocks, he will die. Next episode opens and he lands on the Ood planet to see the Ood. What really is happening is that the Master is coming back. When he died, his body was burnt, but there was a ring left over. And there are people on Earth who praise Harold Saxon, and they are trying to bring him back to life. And the Doctor knows that he has to go back to find him, to try and save him. And he goes back to Earth, and at this point, Wilfred have put together a group of old people to try and find the Doctor, to try and bring him back, because Wilfred is having dreams. When the Master literally is brought back to life, he is walking around a scrapyard. The Doctor and the Master find each other, and they have a bit of a homoerotic tension going on. But it's also at this point that Wilfred manages to find the Doctor, but that means the Doctor ends up losing the Master. The Master also has cunty white hair now. He's a little bit emo. We find out that the Master is killing himself slowly because he's not designed for this human body. Well, helicopters come, bring the Master in, and shoot the Doctor. The Doctor goes to Wilfred for help. People bringing the Master in, I thought it was supposed to be Barack Obama. It's not. It's just the current PM, I think, of the UK to find a way to, again, reach immortality. The Doctor brings Wilfred along, by the way, ends up managing to get under the building that the Master and the current PM is in. And he meets the aliens from Danny's house, one of which is from Horrible Histories. And he finds out that the device the Master's working on is not supposed to just repair a body, it's supposed to repair a whole planet. It's supposed to cure them all of sickness, rewrite their DNA. Now what the Master did, he rewrote his DNA into it, so the entire planet becomes the Master. The whole planet becomes the Master. Barack Obama becomes the Master, and he literally calls them the Master Race. It turns out that the Time Lords on Gallifrey planted the 4 drum beats in the Master's head so the Master would be able to escape the Time War and bring the Time Lords back, because the untempered schism, the drumbeat in his head, is a connection between where the Gallifrey is stored and stuck in time versus the outside world. Jesus fuck. The Master ends up capturing the Doctor. Him, the Danny's house aliens, and Wilfred all escape to a spaceship in Earth's orbit. Wilfred has a gun. He tells the Doctor to use it. And then the Doctor realizes that the Master is trying to bring Gallifrey to Earth. And he picks up the gun. And Wilfred's like, isn't that good? Don't you want your people to come back? And the Doctor literally says, the Time Lords at the end of the Time War wanted to literally become gods. And they crash this spaceship into Earth. And the Master's goal here is to transport himself into all Time Lords. He wants to become every Time Lord, whereas the Time Lords want to take over Earth. A lot's going on. The Doctor shows up with Wilfred. They have a face-off. He's got the gun, and he goes to shoot the Master. And the Master's like, don't shoot me. And he goes to shoot the Time Lords. And they're like, we're your people. What about him? The Doctor says to the Master, move out of the way. Steps to the side. The Doctor shoots the machine, sending all the Time Lords back to Gallifrey, back to the Time Lord, and the Master attacks the Time Lords with the power of like the untempered schism, and the Doctor is relieved because he's alive. He thought this was going to be his death. Because of this though, because of the power, the Master does end up dying. But then Wilfred, who entered a radiation chamber, knocks on the glass 4 times, and the Doctor loses it. Wilfred says, leave me. And the Doctor looks at Wilfred and he says, Wilfred, it would be my honor to die for you. And he swaps places with Wilfred and absorbs all of the radiation from everything that's just happened. The Doctor's alive. He's about to regenerate. And it turns out Martha is going freelance, not with UNIT anymore, but she's married to Mickey Smith. And he goes to his TARDIS and we get the most iconic line in all of Doctor Who. David Tennant, the 10th Doctor, looks at the camera and says, I don't want to go, and regenerates. And we see for the first time the eyes of the 11th Doctor, Matt Smith. And that is where we end this video. At the end of the 4th season of Doctor Who. There is a lot more seasons to cover, and I don't know if I'll keep this format, but that's it. The entire plot of the Russell T Davies era of Doctor Who, of the Eccleston and Tennant era. I very much hope that you all enjoyed this video. I know it's probably long. Trust me, however burdened you feel watching it, I was even more burdened making it. I should have parts 2 and 3 out in the next couple of months. I wanted this part out especially just before the 6th anniversary episode. Please remember to like, subscribe, all that jazz. Thank you so much. I will see you in the next one.